Jesus Christ. Could you hear that? That was my knee. Dude, getting old sucks. Anyway, hey, thanks for clicking on the video. What a great intro. Thanks for clicking the video. My name is Kaylee. This is Read, Rant, Review, where, you guessed it, I read books and I do rant reviews. Traditionally, I do rant reviews in the sense of like, I read it so you don't have to. But today, we're talking about something that I actually really enjoy. And this is more of a, I read it and you really should too. However, the trilogy that we're going to be talking about today, it's the Souls Trilogy by Harley Laroux. I'm sure you've seen this cover in everywhere that books are. This was initially published in 2021, 493 pages, and currently, as of November 26th, 2024, it is sitting at a 4.1 with 92,000 ratings on Goodreads. I bought the whole thing. If this doesn't tell you how much that I loved this, nothing else will. All three of these are currently on Kindle Unlimited, so I went out of my way to purchase these to support this author and to have physical copies because I enjoyed this so much. It's a fantasy, dark, paranormal romance inspired by the stunning natural beauty of Washington State and my fascination with all things spooky. The Souls Trilogy follows three fierce women and the demons who love them as they fight to survive in a small town full of monsters, magic, and mystery. These adult paranormal romances are extra spicy with a diverse cast of queer characters and themes that are sex and kink positive. They are standalone but interconnected, each following a different couple as they unravel the mysteries of the town's past. We're doing a rant review on that, and it's what got me into dark romance. And as that said, these are super spicy, and it's spice that is done so well. If you have watched any of my other videos, you understand that I cringe and I hate it, and I am so sensitive to spice scenes. But these are today, as I go through this rant review, this will be all the spoilers, by the way, beat by beat, chapter by chapter breakdown of the story. However, obviously, I am skipping all the spice. I'm skipping quite a bit of it to focus truly on the plot. The plot that happens in this is wild. And I'm so excited to talk about it. I thought it was incredibly unique. And then everyone's stories, the way that everything ties together is really cool. The video today is really going to be talking about the first two books because these are a lot more closely related and kind of tied together versus the third one. She's off kind of doing her own thing, but this has a lot more lore and history and, I don't know, kind of the magic context of what's going on versus these ones that's more about the actual event. So we'll do these two today. Depending on your interest, depending on how this video does, I'll do a standalone rant review of this one because I love this so much. This is my favorite of the trilogy. I'll stop gushing now. Now on to the normal intros for these videos, right? I do the same 3 disclaimers every time I do one of these videos. The first one being, this will contain all of the spoilers. This will be, as I said, a chapter by chapter, beat by beat breakdown of this plot. So if you want to read the story and not be spoiled, click off the video. I'll catch you in the next one. I do, again, highly recommend that you read this. Even if you watch this video, you would still get so freaking much out of these books. The second disclaimer being, this video is not for the author. Fans, friends, family, whatever. This review is for readers. And the third one is traditionally a trigger warning or content warning for what's coming up. There's some general violence that goes on, and I'll touch on it, but it's general violence, but there's no SA or R or abuse between the characters, which is usually what I'm sensitive to and usually what I try to do content warnings for. It's nothing like that. Objectively, this is crazy spooky and wild, and like I said, there's general violence, but it's not a downer of a story, if that makes sense. General disclaimer, know that it is a darker themed, right? Dark romance. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on. I think that's everything video related. The only other thing is housekeeping. I just hit 1,000 followers yesterday on Monday, November 25th, which is so crazy. You guys, you crazy girl. That's wild. I just want to say thank you. I'm so beyond grateful for every single one of you and everyone who takes their time to watch my videos. The support and the community and everything has been absolutely phenomenal, and I'm beyond grateful. The final thing is on Fridays or Saturdays, I post a poll for the community to see what you guys want to see a rant review on. I was so mad. This one, technically, it was in first place on a poll I did 2 weeks ago for like the entire time. And then literally as I was like halfway through, I was done with this book. I was going into this one to do notes for it. And y'all frickers flip-flopped which came first. So Duskwalker Bride technically beat this one by like, I think 20 people. So I will be doing that one in a couple of weeks. Don't you worry. And then I think the one I did last week was Twisted Love. I'll put up a screenshot. Yeah, there's like 300 people responded to that. You guys are crazy. So I'll be doing Twisted Love next week. So you at least have those to look forward to. Anyway, I guess it's time to do the actual video now, huh? Let's get started. I'm so excited to talk about a book I actually like. Oh, it's gonna be so fun. I think what I'm going to do is try to tell these stories at the same time. We'll kind of go back and forth because they are interconnected and they happen along the same timeline. Actually, let's lay out some casting characters, context in the world, okay? We are in the Pacific Northwest. We're in Washington, and we're in the middle of nowhere, and there's this tiny town called Abelum, Abelum, Abelaum, and tiny town as in like 6,000 people live there. It's an old mining town, right? It was created because of the mines. You have the town, probably, I think it's like 45 minutes to an hour north of the town is the old mine. It's the White Pine Mine. 6 generations ago, people were mining down there. They dug too deep and the tunnels flooded. It was like this catastrophe. The miners got stuck down there. People were dying. They had to survive 2 weeks underground. It got to the point that the survivors were like killing and eating their friends. So the 3 people that survived, they come out and they say, we survived because of the Deep One, capital, the Deep One. There's a god that was at the bottom of the mine that spared them and saved their lives. And so they get out of the White Pine Mine, wherever they like came out at, they create a church to start praising this God, the Deep One. And it's St. Thaddeus Church. And so this whole mining incident really turned into a cult. It turned into a whole religion. And St. Thaddeus is where this religion happens. And it's the Liberi people, that is the name of the cult. And they praise the Deep One. And the whole context of this book and why we're here is because the god, when it made the deal with them, it was 3 lives spared, 3 souls given. The deal that the god made with them was, your lives are spared, but in 6 generations, you must give me 3 souls back. Interesting premise, right? Overall, creepy town. Creepy, culty town in the Pacific Northwest. General haunted vibes. Not great. Everybody's on edge. You can just kind of feel the tenseness that is there. And that's where our book takes place. And that's kind of the general idea of where we're at, okay? For reference, the main characters that we're going to get into for each of these books. In our first book, we have a demon named Leon, and Ray is the woman that he ends up with. In this one, we have Juniper and Zane. And then in this one, we have Everly and Callum. How are they all related? Where does this all tie to? The 3 miners that were spared, right? It's the something Lawson, something Hadley, and then Kynes. This is about Raylan Lawson. This is about Juniper Kynes. And this one is about Everly Hadley. So that's what it is, right? It's this 6th generation dealing with this repayment to this god. And there's demons and gods and magic and witchcraft and all kinds of crazy stuff. So that's kind of where we're at. That's kind of the setup for what we're about to get into. So our first book opens with Leon, a demon, right? He's currently enslaved to Kent Hadley. Kent Hadley is the cult leader of the Liberi people, and he's taking it upon himself to be leading the charge of getting these souls back to the Deep One and sacrificing. So Leon has been enslaved by the Hadley family for over a century. There's a book called The Grimoire. Is that how you say that word, a grimoire? Have I been slaughtering? Grimoire? Is that how you say it? I've always said grimoire. Is it grimoire? Oh no. I'm glad I checked this before I got too deep. It's like a book of spells. While Kent himself does not have any like innate magical capabilities, with this book he can. He can cast spells, and within it is Leon's name, right? You have like your name that everybody calls you, like Leon, but then you have like your demon name that is super sacred. If somebody has that name and they like summon you, then you have to pretty much work for them, right? So in addition to summoning Leon, they also have a binding circle where they keep him. So when they're like not using him to run errands and do specific tasks, they literally have him in a concrete room in the bottom of their basement, just hiding in the dark. And it's actually really, really depressing. In the room that Leon is kept in, there's this description. There was no clock in that wretched little room, but I could feel midnight arrive nonetheless. The world changed slightly, moving just a little closer to the boundary separating it from heaven and hell. Midnight always made me feel good, as did stretching my legs and leaving the binding circle. Kent kept me in that circle so often, he'd had it carved into the floor. Like his father and his grandfather before him, Kent feared that if he released me from his service when he had no immediate need of me, I would somehow manage to escape from him forever. A lovely thought, but an unlikely outcome. Kent had the grimoire, the only remaining record of my name on Earth. He alone could summon me because of it. I suppose he also feared that, in my considerable amount of hatred for him, I'd bend the rules and seek vengeance by murdering him and his entire family after being dismissed from his service. Again, a lovely thought, and a far more likely outcome. I'd risk the wrath of the superiors in hell if it meant being able to demolish this whole family. Kent summoned him to go and get a body out of a grave. Marcus Kynes, 21 years old, the spilled blood that had awakened Hadley's god. Odd that Marcus had been buried at all. A sacrifice was meant to be done in the cathedral, the corpse offered up immediately, or offered alive if possible, for God to toy it with at its leisure. The fact that Marcus had been buried seemed messy. He digs Marcus out of his grave, throws Marcus over his shoulder, and heads to the White Pine Mine. And upon arriving, there's about 24 Liberi members that are there, ready to witness the sacrifice be made. The only one not in uniform was Everly, Kent Hadley's bastard daughter. A few months older than her half-siblings, Victoria and Jeremiah, Everly was blonde, willowy, and garbed in her usual black ensemble. The fledgling witch looked absolutely petrified to be there, and when her blue eyes fell on me and the corpse I came bearing, she looked as if she would vomit. Well, that's some more characters, right? Kent had an affair, ended up getting her pregnant and having Everly like 2 months before the twins Jeremiah and Victoria were born. So there's a lot of tension. There's a lot of animosity, obviously, between those siblings, and it's kind of weird. What also complicates it is that Everly's mother is an incredibly strong witch, and that's why Kent had the affair with her. Like, he had to have his own child be a witch and wield magic, because obviously he can't, right? You kind of see where we're going here. It was a power play. Leon puts Marcus's body down in front of Everly. She inspects the sacrificial carvings on the body, like denoting that it is a sacrifice for the god. And it's incredibly messy, like haphazard, spontaneous even, jagged, like terribly executed. Leon is like, oh, that was, again, spontaneous. Like, that was a surprise thing. Like, that was not planned. Like, obviously Everly or Kent did not do that. She approves it. Kent raises his voice to his people. Long have we waited for this day, my children. Long has the Deep One waited for this, waited with utter patience and mercy. Today, the first of the three go to its depths. May 2 more follow. May 2 more follow, the crowd murmured, save for Everly, whose lips were pressed into a thin, hard line on her pretty face. Servant, bear the sacrifice up to the mine, Kent said. Servant. Fucking hell. I wanted to gag him with his own tongue. Jeremiah will accompany you. The sacrifice is his to offer. A figure stepped forward, reeking of body spray. Jeremiah, of course. This messy, unplanned, absolute botchery of a sacrifice was all thanks to Kent's dear son. I rolled my eyes, but hauled naked Marcus off the ground, and without a word to Jeremiah, stalked away into the trees away from the fire's light. There, in the shadows of the trees, was White Pine mine shaft. Boarded up for nearly a century, the stained wood framing the entrance had been covered with numerous ruins. Some carved, some painted, some branded. A metal sign dangled from the wood on broken chain, reading, "Caution, open mine, do not enter." The ground was mossy, and numerous white-capped mushrooms grew in thick clusters around the shaft's opening. The ground itself was vibrating. The trees were restless. An odd smell, like deep water and rotting algae, permeated the air. Somewhere, deep in those flooded mines beneath our feet, an ancient god was stirring. So Jeremiah takes Marcus's body, throws it down the mine shaft. Then, from the darkness, there came a howl, like the scream of a fox, but drawn out into such an agonized cry that it made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. It was time to leave. I didn't feel like dealing with that now, or ever. The god wasn't the only thing waking up. That's so scary. In the following chapter, we meet Ray. Raylan Lawson. Her family lived in Abram forever, like they're one of the founding families. Her great-great-great-grandfather was one of the miners that survived, and she lived in Abram until she was 7 years old when her parents moved to California. She's currently moving back to Abram because her parents retired and they're moving to Spain. So she decides that she is going to move back to town, do her last year of college at the local university, and live in the house that they owned. They're giving her pretty much like 1 year rent-free to finish school and get her life together and figure out what she wants to do next. What she actually wants to do, though, is she is a YouTube paranormal investigator, and she does it the legit way, where it's very long videos with very minor things happening. And she's reflecting on how upset she is that all these people have like millions of views and they're super famous because they just are completely faking it, or they're cutting down their videos to only do the crazy stuff. And she's like, I want legit, like, paranormal investigation journalism type thing. She wants to do it for real, but that also makes her channel not very popular. But in a perfect world, that's what she would do full time. Like, she dreads the idea of settling down and having to get a normal 9-to-5 job. The best way to describe Ray is, I don't know if it's in this book or if I read it on a comment somewhere, but she's pretty much Velma from Scooby-Doo. She's got this like black cut bob. She's super clumsy. She wears her glasses and they're always falling off of her face. And she is just like this little, not even quirky, but just very like clumsy, goofy, no sense of self-preservation, not very, like, zero survival instinct whatsoever. I think the only other thing to note about her before we begin is that she has a cat named Cheesecake. He plays a surprisingly large role in this book. So she drives up to Abram, she gets settled, she puts everything in their house, and their house is on the outskirts of town in the middle of the woods, like in a clearing in the middle of the woods. She drops Cheesecake off, she gets all that together, and then she goes to her best friend Anaya's bookstore. Anaya is super cool. She's very sweet, very supportive friend of Ray, and she's super glad that they're going to be going to college together and be around each other more. She's helping Anaya at the bookstore. She went a little bit early. They were supposed to meet after work, but she was just too anxious and just wanted to see her friend. So she's keeping herself busy and helping put some books away. And unfortunately, Gravity and I had always had a strained relationship. Pretty toxic, actually. Between my untied bootlaces, slipping glasses, and 2 large book stack, I tripped over my own feet halfway to the back and sent the books flying. Everything's fine, I called, as Anaya loudly burst out laughing. I scrambled on my hands and knees to collect the books until my fingers brushed the cracking leather-bound cover of a thin volume, and I jerked back in shock. The book was cold. And it's the grimoire. So Anaya says that she can keep it. She's like, hey, I don't need it. Consider it like a bridesmaid gift. Anaya's about to get married in a couple of months. Yeah, she's like, just keep it. It's a welcome gift. It's a bridesmaid's gift, whatever. And she's excited about this because maybe it could help her get something paranormal for her YouTube channel, right? She gets to dabble with some of this paranormal stuff. And that's all that she needs. She just needs something to go viral to make this her full-time job. With that in mind, she says, speaking of legends, I tapped my fingers on the cup, trying to look innocent. Is that old church still up there near the shaft that they pulled the last 3 miners out of? St. Thaddeus? I think so. I doubt Mr. Hadley would have let them demolish it. He's pretty protective of those historical sites. Kent Hadley is the head of the Historical Society. Super nice, super wealthy. I'm in some same classes with his daughter, Victoria. I'll introduce you on Monday. And she's like, hey, Ray, seriously, promise me, like, you're not going to go up there. Like, it's literally condemned. It's super dangerous. She's like, yeah, I would never do such a thing. But obviously, she does plan on going to this church, though. That night, she's unpacking at home. She calls her parents, talks a little bit. It's pretty cute. And then she just can't stop thinking about that book that Anaya gave her. So she's flipping through it, and then I found a drawing unlike the others. It was a sketch of a man around my own age, I guessed. His hair lay in waves that curled around his ears, soft pencil strokes portraying a lightness to it. He was shirtless, the muscles of his lean chest starkly outlined and marred with what I could only think were meant to be scars, in the vague outlines of tattoos. His lips were full, his chin dimpled. Beneath the dark, heavily drawn brows, his eyes had been colored gold. It was the only spot of color I'd encountered in the book so far. It made his eyes look alive, as if they were watching me, and there was a texture to them as if they had been formed with flakes of gold leaf. The adjoining page read, Operation for the Summoning and Binding of the Killer. The Killer? Summoning and binding? These were instructions on summoning a demon. I bookmarked that page, and I wasn't sure why yet. It became even harder to sleep knowing that downstairs on the coffee table the grimoire sat closed. But within those pages, in the dark, those golden eyes still shone, waiting, watching. The following day is her first day at the university. It's the first day of the semester. It went pretty normal, other than this weird chatter going on about the dead kid. Student found dead in university campus. Investigation ongoing is what she found when she Googled what was going on. Just before the semester started, a student's body had been found brutally murdered in one of the university buildings. The true crime junkie in me kept searching for more, but there's little to go off of. No suspects, no leads, no statements by local police. I was honestly stunned that a murder could occur in such a quiet, small town and not result in an absolute explosion of press and speculation. So her little curious ass stumbles across the building that still has the crime tape around it and goes straight up to it to take a picture. The yellow of the caution tape was such a stark contrast to the gray, rainy sky and the buildings or something. He's taking a photo of it, and Leon appears wearing a security guard uniform, and he has been tasked by Kent to keep an eye on the school, to keep an eye on the students, because after making that offering, as he said, the god wasn't the only thing that woke up. The god also started waking up other of its monsters and sending them out into the world. The monsters? Excuse me? So he's out just to make sure that there's not like crazy wreaking havoc stuff going on with these monsters in the student body population, right? He's like, we don't need attention drawn here. What he was not expecting was to run into this little hottie-toddy Ray, who again has no sense of survival instinct. So she's mouthing off to him. They have a little bit of heated back and forth. He's telling her to get lost. She's like, you're not the boss of me, blah, blah, blah. He asks what her name is. She lies. And then she starts feeling this like weird sensation of like hands on her and like something squeezing her brain until she says her name's Raylyn. And then the sensation totally goes away. Kind of freaky. She goes to leave, and when she turns back to look at him, she like feels something twisting around her leg and she trips. Books spilling everywhere. Luckily, Anaya sees this happen and comes running over to helps her pick everything up, and then takes her over to meet the friend group. Ray, this is Jeremiah and Victoria Hadley. They were obviously twins. Light brown hair, dark blue eyes, pale skin, and freckled noses. They looked like they would have been the popular ones in high school. Their dad pretty much owns the school, so if you have any complaints, just go straight to them. No. We don't own the school. Technically, Dad only owns 3 buildings, Victoria said. And then Victoria says, you were born around here, right? Like, your family's from here? Yep, my dad's side. The Lawsons, they lived here for, hell, probably a century. Just like our family. Victoria smiled, but the expression seemed a little too tight to be real. Weird. Then you probably already have an idea of how interesting this place can be. Ghosts, poltergeists, demons, cryptids. She glanced to the side behind me toward Calgary Hall. Even murders now, apparently. All 5 of us glanced back. Calgary Hall would have looked so normal if it weren't for all that caution tape, and the painfully hot asshole standing guard in front of it. Before she goes to leave, she takes like one final glance over at Leon. At that distance, his pale green eyes caught the light peeking through the clouds and flashed like gold leaf caught in the sun. In French, there's a phrase for the random urge to jump from high places, the irrational desire to swerve into traffic despite imminent destruction. L'appel du vide. The call of the void. Those sudden, feral impulses tend to be shoved away immediately, but humans still experience them. What if you jumped? What if you touched the fire? What if? What if? When I looked at him, staring at me, the void called. What if? We get to Leon's chapter, and he's telling us about the security guard duty that I mentioned earlier, that Kent's sacrifice hadn't just stirred his god, it had awakened the Eld, the ancient beasts of the forest who were sustained only by blood, magic, and pain. The gods' awakening was making them restless, and soon enough they would begin to creep from the darkest depths of the forest to hunt. I was to dispose of the beasts when I found them, which wasn't an easy task, but it wasn't as if I would refuse Kent's orders. Then we get the entire situation of him meeting Ray, like from his POV, which usually really annoys the shit out of me. Which I'm not a fan of. Like, just in general in books, I hate when we do the exact same scene a second time. Like, just continue the story, dude. I heard it the first. But in this one, we get some insight, right? This is their first interaction. It's kind of a big deal what their first impressions of each other are and what they're thinking internally. So I'm like, okay, I kind of excused it, especially because this is the only time that it happens. So when she's kind of mouthing off to him when they meet on the stairs, he says a bitchy attitude couldn't mask the fear, and it couldn't mask desire. Her voice grew sharper, just a little more desperate. There was a spark of hellfire in her. Bratty, brave. Oh, I liked that. Have you ever wondered why humans buy their dogs toys that squeak? It's because the squeak mimics the sound of an animal fighting for its life, and the dogs get excited. Sometimes those squeaky, desperate sounds of struggle just make a predator want to bite even more. They have a very much like brat dom relationship thing going on. Like, that's kind of the whole basis of this book. It, like, kink-wise, that's what's going on between them. But when he sees her get introduced to the Hadleys, again, he is watching her. He's watching her this entire time. What the hell is she doing with them? Like, I've never seen her here before. Like, does she even know who they are? Like, how evil these people are? And then he's like, it doesn't matter. Like, literally, I don't even know why I care about this human. I don't even know why I'm thinking about this. I was a killer, a hunter. I wasn't a protector, not even for the tiny mortal girls with no sense of self-preservation. Later in the day, he comes across her again, and she's sitting at a park bench, and she's sitting at a picnic. She's sitting at a picnic table on her laptop, doing research on St. Thaddeus and the White Pine Mine, because she's going to go there. So she has a thing pulled up, and he reads it over her shoulder. Abelum is a host to a menagerie of haunted locales and historical monuments, it read. One such place is St. Thaddeus Church, located 1 mile from the infamous White Pine mine shaft, where the survivors of the 1899 disaster were freed. He gives her a hard time about it. He advises her to not go there. She's like, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were the campus guard. Are you the church guard too? And he is, again, turned on by the brattiness. But he tells her it's a dangerous place, condemned, locked. Any local would know better than to visit there. Something about this unassuming new girl casually involving herself with the most dangerous parts of Abelum just didn't sit right with me. They have some back and forth, lots of flirting, lots of banter. And he just can't stop thinking about, like, why would the Hadleys care? Like, he's really trying to figure out in his head of why they would care about this girl. But he keeps trying to avoid that feeling. But he is objectively, like, instantly infatuated with her. Which I'm so cool with when it's paranormal stuff like this. Oh, yeah, give me a demon, give me a monster, give me the Grim Reaper. Hey, we're going to learn a lot about each other in this video, okay? Men scare me. I don't want to read a romance about, like, an overly clingy insta-love man, because it inevitably comes across like abusive and love bombing and problematic. But when a monster does it, or like a demon, I'm cool with it. Give me some otherworldly being. Yeah, dude, they can instantly love. That's fine. Call it like a what is it? A mate, a bonding thing that only they can sense. Yeah, brother, sign me up. So So that's what's happening here. So while this, right, I'm on chapter 6. We're going to cut to Juniper and Zane. Juniper Kynes, right? Marcus Kynes, her brother, is the guy who got killed in the church and the guy who got sacrificed, right? Her little brother. Juniper was the original sacrifice. When she was like 14 years old, she managed to escape. So in chapter 1, she's having this kind of flashback to her being friends with Victoria. And Juniper and Victoria were friends. She didn't know why. She had a hard time making friends and was generally perceived as a bitch. A bitch and a partier were the things that her and Victoria had in common. And Victoria was very easy with the money. She would buy her clothes, get her drugs, anything that she really wanted. But that generosity ends with Everly. Jeremiah and Victoria are both just assholes to Everly. They don't give her any money. They pretty much call her stupid. Like, she's not allowed to really have anything that they have. Like, she's very much treated as an other, even by Kent. And obviously their mom hates her, right? Like, again, just super shitty of a situation for Everly to be in. The chapter ends with Victoria taking Juniper to St. Thaddeus to drop acid. Like, when she starts tripping, they go inside and the Liberi are there to sacrifice her. The chapter ends with Victoria standing at the mine shaft with all the Liberi and Everly, and she says, send her to God. And they throw her into the mine shaft. 3 years later, from Zane's perspective, Zane is a soul hunter, and he tries to stay away from Abelum. Abelum, like hell, was built on a foundation of magic and memories. It was beautiful. It drew in curious minds and ensnared them. Like a spider weaving its web, some humans stayed there forever, others swiftly left. But Abelum had something that even hell did not. Abelum had a god. Gods and demons had never gotten along. We'd taken hell back from them, and they'd ended up on Earth, weak and asleep, but always inevitably. Curious little humans took things too far. Curious human hands went digging, and curious human minds woke something up. Humans and gods were a bad combination. Give a human knowledge, and he thinks he's wise. Give a human magic, and he thinks he's strong. Give a human religion, and he'll think he is right. So he had been away from the town for several years, but he came back because of Leon. He and Leon are bonded. When a demon, like in a show of affection and bonding and like matedness and closeness, they get piercings together. And Zane and Leon are bonded. They have piercings that they gave each other. And they used to be lovers, they've been friends. So he shows up to help Leon after Kent had tortured him. Why did Kent torture him this day? Dude does it all the time. But he did it that day because Juniper had been released from the mental hospital. Upon Juniper's escape, they convinced everybody that she was crazy and making it up, and then she tried to kill Victoria for like revenge. Got caught, got put in like a mental institution for 3 years, and then she got released that day, and he's still pissed that she even got away in the first place, so he took that anger out on Leon. Zane is fascinated by this. Like, as a soul hunter, he likes collecting damaged souls. That's fascinating, and it's fun for him, and he likes the chase, and I was fascinated with them. Humans who had been broken and survived, humans who had just turned out wrong. I liked to hunt oddities, souls with heavy history and heavier scars. They fought the hardest, and that made it even sweeter when they eventually became mine. He can smell the eld beasts, smell them in the woods, and he's thinking to himself that she probably is not even going to survive the night. Like, they're going to come after her. Like, she's been marked by a god, and they would be lured to the magic lingering around her, hungry for a taste. She likely wouldn't even survive the night. While Leon is sleeping off his wounds, Zane just kind of goes out wandering, and he's getting this weird pull to this specific 24-hour diner at the edge of town. And he's pulled there because there's other demons. There's 3 other soul hunters. 2 of them he recognized that are in the corner of this diner for some reason. So he, kind of being fascinated by this, pulls up a chair at the counter and asks for a coffee. It's kind of weird. It's a weird night. There's weird stuff in the air. He's making small talk with the worker. And suddenly, Juniper busts through the front door of the diner, muddy and looking crazed, and her hair's a mess and everything's just kind of sketchy. And she goes into the bathroom to wash off. And the guy recognizes her, and he's like, oh my god, you're Juniper Kynes, get out of here. She's like, I just need fucking food. Like, leave me alone. She, like, pulls out a pistol and threatens him. She, like, pulls out a pistol to threaten the worker. And then she has a knife pointed at Zane at the counter, making threats to this guy. And she's like, I just want food. Like, just go back there, get me whatever. I'm hungry. Zane is instantly just fascinated by this little wolf, is what he calls her. She's got a bite, and she's got this aggression to her. And he's like, hey, you know he's just calling the cops back there, right? Like, he's not actually getting you food. And she's like, fuck. She like reaches over the counter, gets some like stale donuts and some like random stuff that she can reach, throws it in her bag, and makes a run for it out the door. The soul hunters immediately go to follow her. Zane follows after them. He beats them up, and he's like, fuck off, she's mine. Again, like, he is very known in hell for soul hunting. He stalks Juniper. He follows her from a distance until she's in the middle of the road, and one of the eld beasts try to approach her. He gets closer, so the eld beast runs away. Same thing. They can sense demons. They're afraid of demons. They understand, like, the pecking order of the universe, and demons will fuck them up, you know? He says, you need to shoot for the head. It's really the only way to kill them. She nearly jumped out of her skin at the sound of my voice. She's like, who the hell are you? You followed me like you were at the diner. He says, you have quite a few of those things following you, little wolf. They all wish you a lot more harm than I do. You need to get indoors. If you're going to travel at night, use a vehicle. Those things, you know what they are? Eld beasts. They're elder monsters from when the world was young, but magic can stir them from their slumber, magic and gods. You're one of them, aren't you? One of the Liberi? No, I'm not part of Kent Hadley's little cult. I have no interest in sacrificing you to an old god. That would be such a waste of your soul. And what a beautiful, damaged soul it is. She's like, what the hell are you then? And she shoots at him. Shoots him in the shoulder. Doesn't do anything. They don't feel pain. Demons have such a high threshold for pain, and then they also like pretty much instantly heal, so it doesn't affect anything. So he digs his little fingers in his wound and pulls out the bullet, and he's like, my, so flirtatious. Do that again, Juniper, and I might think you want to play. That doesn't tell you the type of spikes that we get in that book. And he says, you'll see me again. Survive a few years, Juniper. Fight for your life. I like fighters. They make better prey. Survive, and the next time you see me, I may have an offer for you. a little ominous. So we cut back to Juniper's perspective for chapter 3. Juniper clearly has PTSD, right? Can we all just get that out of the way? She is haunted by monsters. She's haunted by what happened to her after the whole sacrifice thing, from being betrayed by her best friend, having to abandon her family. Like, there is so, like, her family not believing her. She is so mentally, like, broken at this point. The book does such a good job at conveying that and the feelings that you kind of experience in, like, the PTSD episodes and how all of those feel. I'll read this little bit so you can kind of understand where I'm coming from. She says, most people have fantasized about danger, how they would escape, how they would fight, how they'd be too smart to be hurt. But those fantasies are nothing compared to the moment it happens. Sometimes you can watch danger coming at you like a freight train, and all you can do is stand there. All you can do is let it overtake you. Sometimes there's no running, no fighting. Sometimes bad shit happens. The bad shit changes you. You can't look at the world the same. You realize that manners, morals, culture, society, friends, and family are all fake. They're ideas we cling to make existence bearable. When that's ripped away, the fake, optimistic bullshit, the only thing you have left is to survive. Survival is messy. Survival has no morals or kindness. Survival isn't black and white, good versus evil. Survival is shades of red. It's blood taken and it's blood lost. My survival was a gun, liquor was my sustenance, and rough sex was my painkiller. So she's in a dingy bar. It's years later. She's in a dingy bar, hustling a game of pool, trying to get money from these people. They realize that she's hustling them. She's about to get in a fist fight. Dude, like, I think he tries to pull a gun or a knife or something on her. And before she can really do anything, his head gets sliced off by Zaid. Homie just shows up in the bar and just saves the day. She makes a run for it. She immediately hops into her Jeep and starts driving away until something crashes into the side of her car, and it's an Eld. It's another Eld beast. But again, she's like, I think she's states away at this point. So she pulled over to see what she had hit. I readied the gun as a hulking, misshapen form lurched toward me in the dark. The Eld looked different everywhere I went. In Abelum, they resembled bizarre mutated wolves. In New York, they were massive bloated rats. Here they looked like goddamn crocodiles. The creature stepped into the beams of my headlight, its large maw gaping open, lined with rotten teeth, the smell of it overpowering like meat left out in the sun in the long heat of summer. Its body was long, covered in thick scales but haunched, as if it wanted to walk upright. Its front legs were too long, bare bones and scaly, moldy flesh. Its back legs were thick, muscular. The thing could probably jump faster than I could shoot. I had to shoot first. So she tries to. I think she kind of misses, or she hits the body. It jumps on top of her. It's attacking her. She manages to shoot it in the head, and it dies. Zaid is there. He'd been watching, and he says, "You can hold your own. How cute." Bit of back and forth and chatting there. She doesn't recognize him. Like, she doesn't know who he is. Yeah, so I didn't say it earlier, but when she shot him, it was because he came out in his demon form. The demons, when they're on Earth, they put a lot of effort into, like, disguising themselves to look human. And so he let the mask slip for a little bit when he had confronted her and was telling her about the Eld Beast stuff. That's why she shot him. When he comes up to her after shooting this monster, and he's flirting with her, and they're having this back and forth, and she's thanking him for helping her at the bar and helping her get out of that situation, he is like, yeah, you know, you want to get a smoke? And so they do. They kind of like walk into the woods, and they go and have a cigarette, and they're vibing. She, again, doesn't recognize him, has no idea who this man is. It was a one-time encounter years ago. Lots of flirting, lots of mutual attraction between them, and she's talking about him hurting her in that being a turn-on. She's thinking, it's strange to be haunted by dreams of pain and death, only to wake up and desperately seek the same things. Call it a kink, a fetish, whatever. I couldn't escape the desire to take the very things that had hurt me and make them mine. Control them, use them. Maybe someday it would make them less frightening. Maybe one day it would make the nightmares stop. Monsters were real and gods were evil. So the world was already going to hell, regardless of my weird sexual turn-ons. And they go on to have spice. Right? They go on to do stuff, and as he's like finishing, she turns around to watch him, and he has his like full demon form showing. Like, he's too distracted to really care to like hide it. Oh, yeah. Sorry. So this book is like, this particular one is like very like kinky spicy, and like the whole book is spicy. I'm gonna show my phone really fast to the camera. You can pause it if you want to read this part that I have highlighted, but this just gives you a vibe of what we're dealing with here, right? So that's why this isn't getting its own book or its own rant review, because it's literally just pages upon pages of that. And so when she looks back, though, and she sees his demon form, she gets pissed and she confronts him and she's like, what the fuck, dude? He goes back to like his normal human form, and then he takes it a step further and starts like changing his form even more, so gets rid of like all of his tattoos, ages down, looks like this really young boy, changes his voice when he's talking to her, and he's like, don't you recognize me? Maybe you've seen it in a crowd, in a club, or on the side of the road. He's been stalking her for years, keeping an eye on her and like protecting her from a distance, and she had never known. He says, I didn't think much of you when I first saw you, Juniper. Frankly, I didn't think that you would survive this long, but I told you we'd meet again. You really are a fascinating little mortal specimen. You should have died so many times, and yet you just keep going. Impressive. So when she's like, what do you want? Like, what the hell do you want? He says, you. Huh? She's like, if he wanted to kill me, he would have done it by now. Like, this is such a weird situation. She's getting kind of freaked out. So he goes to leave. He leaned down and whispered in my ear, I've made my intentions clear. Now it's your turn. If you're sick of running, come find me. Until then, stay alive, little wolf. I want to play with you again. Okay, so she goes to drive away. And like the next day when she's filling up the gas in her car, she finds a little piece of paper that says, for business or pleasure, call when you're ready to make a deal, with his phone number. A deal with a demon. A deal for anything I wanted, in exchange for all that I had left. I should have thrown that scrap of paper away. I should have forgotten all about him and kept running. Running like I always had. But I kept the paper. I tucked it away in my wallet, and when the nights were darkest, and I was drunk and alone, I thought about it. I thought about what would be worth a deal with a demon. I thought about his taste, his smell, his tongue, far more than I should have. I thought about revenge, and I thought about home, the place I swore I would never go back to. But I would go back. A lot sooner than I thought. In chapter 5, she has a flashback to the hospital. She's talking to her brother, and in the middle of it, he starts kind of like morphing and going away and saying that it's too late. And so she wakes up from this nightmare. She has nightmares all the time, but she wakes up from this nightmare, and she has a text message from her mom that Marcus died. She does not have a good relationship with her mom. She never did. So the text is like really short, and it's just kind of shitty, and it's really like sad that that's how she found out. So she Googles it and confirms that he was in fact killed, and she is distraught about it. It took my brother, the god, the Hadleys, all their sick little followers. They operated without fear. They killed without hesitation. They hid in plain sight because they thought no one would dare defy them. After all, they had a god on their side. Who would dare defy a god? Me. I could. I defied it once before, and I'll do it again. There would be no justice unless I took it myself. So she drives back to Abelm to go to his funeral, and she watches it from a distance. She doesn't want to disturb anybody. She doesn't want people to know that she's back in town, so she's just watching it from far away, and is just so upset that she had pretty much lost contact with her brother, and that he was such this kind soul and good kid, and he didn't deserve it, and she feels guilty because she never warned him. Like, she didn't warn him about Jeremiah and Victoria and the evil things that they did. He didn't believe her when she told him about it in the hospital, but like, she feels guilty that she didn't warn him again or warn him more. But she also acknowledges like he wouldn't have believed her anyway. Again, she hadn't talked to him in years, and she has this like really poignant thought about it. I'd never know if he was happy. I'd never know if he stayed kind. Part of me hoped that he hadn't changed, and maybe that was selfish of me. People never stayed how you found them. Over minutes, hours, months, years, the people you've met become strangers, and you have to meet them all over again. It was strange, honestly. The pain I felt was based on memories of a person I didn't know anymore. He and I only had a past. She returns to his grave that night to really kind of pay respect, because she didn't want to interrupt the funeral earlier. But when she's there, Leon is there, desecrating the grave and stealing her brother's body. So she watches from the trees while this is happening, and this idea of revenge comes back. The Hadleys had sealed their fate when they failed to kill me. They pounded the first nail in their own coffin when they killed Marcus. They hammered the second one home when they stole his body. I was going to kill them all, no matter what it took, no matter what I had to give up, no matter what deals had to be made. Okay, that's exactly what she does. She calls up Zane, and she's like, hey, I'm ready to make a deal. Zane is reflecting, though, and this goes back to the soul hunting thing. I'd been hunting souls for over 5 centuries. It was lucrative work and had a way of becoming easier the longer you've done it. Bring 1 soul back to hell and you gain power. Bring 2 souls back to hell and your power doubles, and so on. Collect enough souls, and hell begins to afford you certain luxuries. Human money, specifically. It became far easier to convince humans to trust me when I could impress them with expensive things. So he's got like a whole ass house and like an Acura NSX and a bunch of stuff. Like he's very like bougie rich guy over here because he takes people's souls. So she texts him about wanting to make a deal. They meet up at the diner to make this deal, and she's drunk. She had to get drunk to get like the confidence to go through with this. And she's like, okay, like what are your terms? He says, it's up to you. You have to tell me what you want out of it. And she says, I want to kill the Hadleys. Like, I want to kill Kent. I want to kill Jeremiah, Victoria, Meredith, which is the mom. Their family wiped off the face of the earth. And then I want the same for their followers. I want their most loyal slaughtered. I want anyone who has ever supported them to spend the rest of their miserable lives shaking in fear that I might find them. And I want to do it myself, with my own hands. I just need backup. He says, that's extensive. She's like, oh, you don't think you can do it? And he's like, I can do it, but like your soul's not really worth all that. Like you gotta give me more than just your soul for me to be doing this. And she's like, well, what else? What can I give you? He says, your soul is the start. Your body will also be mine. Your pleasure, your pain, and your submission, mine. In exchange, I'll help you carry out this revenge you seek. They have a little bit more of a flirtatious back and forth about what exactly that deal entails and giving up your body to somebody as well. Your body and soul for revenge. I want it all, Juniper. Make no mistake, for a deal like this, I will own you in every possible way. You say you're not afraid of pain, but I think you've forgotten how to feel it. They hurt you once, so you decided you would never feel pain again, didn't you? And if you can't feel it, then you won't fear it. She smiled slowly. Almost, but not quite. They hurt me once, so I decided pain can't hurt me anymore. I decided pain feels really damn good. Pain keeps me going. Sometimes pain is the only thing that reminds me I'm alive. I think we'll get along just fine, Juniper Kynes. If you can't tell their spice in the kink that is happening in this book, it's literally just like hurting each other for pleasure. Like pain and pleasure stuff the whole time. Like he has a red broom. You know what I'm saying? 50 Shades of Grey Demon Edition. She says, okay, it's a deal. He says, great. You need to sober up, though. And if you still want to do this tomorrow, go into the woods as deep as you can. We'll make the deal there. And she's like, oh, like, taking me to the deep woods, you trying to kill me? And he's like, yeah, no one can hear you scream. But, like, in a wink-wink hot way. Oh, my God. So she goes to this cabin in the woods. It's like an old hunting cabin that her dad had. It's more like a shack, but she's kind of reflecting on her childhood and going hunting out there and her dad teaching her how to shoot guns. And, you know, the last time she stayed in the cabin was when she was on the run after trying to kill Victoria. She goes there, she sleeps for the night, and the following day she's making her way through the woods. He finds her. They agree on the terms of the deal, and part of the deal is that, like, his name has to be carved into her skin. Like, she has to bleed his name. Okay, that's fine. So he pulls out a knife to do this, and she asks, I have to do it myself? Are you scared? I'm not scared. It's not fear. Don't you want control? It's not required to be done by your own hand. Then you do it. I can't. My mind won't let me. Bad memories. I see. I can do it for you if you wish, but can you bear to let me? My head was spinning. I dug my nails into my palm in an effort to not pass out. Suddenly his heat drew closer to my back, his breath on my neck. You came here willing, Juniper, but unwilling memories are all you can think of. He was right. I was spiraling and I couldn't pull myself out. I squeezed my eyes shut, but it didn't help. I clenched everything as tightly as I could, focusing on every muscle, reminding myself of where I was. Clench tight, hold, relax one muscle at a time, but I couldn't run from memories. I couldn't hide. I couldn't erase the sight of that knife slicing open my skin. A claw caressing my spine. It jolted me back to reality so hard I gasped, my eyes flying open. I could hear the wind in the trees again and the sound of the rain falling around me. The drops were blessedly cold on my flushed skin. Allow me to help you defeat your first enemy, little wolf. Do you feel regret when those memories grip you? And she's like, yeah, I wish I would have fought harder. I wish I would have ran. I wish I would have done more than I did. He says, would it ease your mind if you ran this time? If you fought? Would you feel better if I took your willing offer by force? If you run now and I catch you, it will be exactly what you want. It made no sense to want to be overpowered, to desire being taken by force, but I knew what he meant. I'd sought out rough, kinky sex long enough that I understood it. I found comfort in being overpowered, so long as I'd chosen to be. I could pluck out the horror in my memories and reimagine it, make it mine. Okay. Then she says, you can't fix me, you know? Fix you? Little wolf, I have no desire to fix you. I just want to see all your broken edges shine. I want to feel how sharp you are. So then she runs, and he chases her through the woods. And then they get in a fight at the end, and she stabs him in the side. And he lets her stab him because that's how, like, she would have kept going forever. And he's, like, super turned on by being stabbed. And then they end up doing spicy stuff, and his name gets carved in her, and, like, whatever. It's cute. It's hot. I don't know what you want from me. But to that point of what I just read, the idea of I could pluck out the horror in my memories and reimagine it, make it mine, I think is a huge sell of dark romance. I think that one of the best things that this genre could offer and what reading dark, traumatic things can do is the same thing, where you can read a situation that maybe you relate to or had been through something similar, and then you're able to either put some words to it that maybe you couldn't before, and some feelings and explanations that are there, and you can recontextualize what you've been through. And it's almost like this cathartic thing where in a very, very similar way, it's almost like you're taking claim of what happened. And I think that there's also some solace and some, not unity, what would be the word? Not camaraderie either. There's some word that is on the tip of my tongue of this idea of like relating to something, to see what it maybe had happened to you or something similar written on paper. It's almost this like validation, and then to see that person overcome said thing and live a happy life and have a happily ever after and do whatever, survive that, I think is also like a very encouraging thing to read. And that's why I get so upset on this channel when I read dark romances that are handled so poorly, because it could be such a cathartic thing for somebody to read. When you handle such sensitive topics in such a shitty way that some of these authors do, I think it completely, A, it does the genre wrong, B, it's almost like making light or like disrespect to people who have been in similar situations that is just like icky. You're going to capitalize off of these horrible things that that happen to real people all the time, make a bunch of money off of it, and do a shit job talking about it in the first place. It just feels icky. Does that make sense? I hope anything I just said makes sense. I feel like I was just rambling, but the other thing that is worth noting that I highlighted out of this section was panic is a strange thing. When you felt it for so long, it never feels normal. It feels familiar. It becomes an unpleasant friend, one I wanted to leave behind, but was also alarmed by the absence of. To not feel panic would have been suspicious. It would have meant I'd let my guard down too much. I'd let myself get too comfortable. Neil Hilborn is a spoken word artist, poet guy who you probably know him from OCD if you've seen anything. He like went super viral a couple years ago when he talks about being in a relationship and how OCD has impacted it. It's such a beautiful poem. He's such a good writer. And there's one particular line in one of his poems that talks about he wishes that he didn't have anxiety, but then he doesn't know who he would be without it. And that made me think of that. And I think that is such like a powerful thing that people with like mental illnesses feel, and like mental health issues in general, where it's like it becomes such a like integral part of you as a person that it's like, I don't know who I am anymore. Like I don't know what to do. If like it does. And it's hard to not have it happen, because obviously that shouldn't be like a core tenet of your being, but it is. Hey, is it? Oh my god, why is that glare so weird? Okay, I guess we're gonna have to deal with bad lighting, sorry. Jesus, as I blind myself. Okay, we just have to deal with unflattering overhead lighting, that's fine. God, so it's a new day, if you can't tell. I went through and I kind of recalibrated my notes and sorted it. I don't know if you can tell, there's 8 pages here of just after Zane and Juniper make their deal, right? There's a bunch of spice, they do the thing, she gives her soul to him, and then she passes out, and then he picks her up and he takes her home, and it's very, very cute. He reveals in his chapter in the following one that he has watched her for years, But he also watched her the night before, like when she was in the cabin by herself, and he protected her from some of the eld beasts that were trying to approach her. He is just very, very protective, and he has just been waiting for her to offer her soul for so long. It's like a stalker romance, but in the most like polite, respectful way that you could possibly have one, which I love that. So he takes her home to his mansion, washes her off in the shower with a removable shower head. Not sure why I needed to specify that. And puts her in bed to rest. And then again, dude is like wildly wanting to touch her and so attracted to her and wanting to do these things, and literally chastises himself and bites his knuckles until he bleeds. And then he walks away and leaves her alone. Because again, consent is key, my guy. Like, this is my favorite thing about this entire book, is how much that like consent is such like a vital part of every single thing that happens. Like, In the following chapter, she wakes up. They go and get food and talk about next steps for the revenge plan. She says that she wants to get Marcus's body, and then she wants to kill the demon who took his body, which is Leon. And Zane says that's definitely not happening. Leon literally hates the Hadleys as much as you do. He's not your enemy. He's been forced to do that because he's been captive to that family for over 100 years and has been tortured by them. And she's very, very pissed off about it. You're going back on your word. He keeps pushing back, and he's like, I'm not, but I'm not doing that to somebody who I care about like that, and that's not the case. So ensues a tantrum, deserved or otherwise, but it ends with him saying that he will find out where Marcus is. And so he goes to go find Leon. Obviously, Leon's the one that disposed, quote unquote, of the body, so that'll give him a good idea on where to go. And wouldn't you know it, is playing campus police guard. Asks him to meet that night at a little pub so that they can talk about things and catch up on life. And he clocks that Leon is distracted by Ray and can't keep her eyes off of them. Or can't keep his eyes off of her. In the following chapter is another one from Zane's perspective, and it's at the pub. So let's go back and see what led Leon and Raylan to said pub. So we go back to chapter 6 in the previous book, Her Soul to Take, and this is from Ray's perspective. Bro, literally this entire chapter is just her getting off to thoughts of Leon. Like, met him one time, and all of a sudden that's all she can think about in the shower. Something about him wasn't safe. I couldn't put my finger on it, but he set off alarm bells in my brain that told me to run. A rabbit knew instinctively to flee from a wolf. So why, instead of fleeing, was I fantasizing about being caught? Chapter 7. There's an art festival on Main Street, and Victoria invites Ray to go. She's really trying to hang out with her all the time and inviting her to do things. Ray goes. She approaches the same friend group as earlier, but also Kent Hadley is there. He says, "A pleasure to meet you, my dear. I hope you're feeling welcome in Abelum so far." "Very. Victoria and Jeremiah have been wonderful. I'm glad to finally meet you. I've heard you practically own the town, Mr. Hadley." "Oh, ridiculous. Abelum is home, full of family and friends. Whatever it needs from me, I'll gladly give. And if you need anything, Miss Raylan, just let me know. And please, you can call me Kent. You know, I went to high school with your father. High school and then university. Richard, isn't that right? Richard Lawson?" "Yeah, my dad grew up here. How did you know I'm a Lawson? Family resemblance that strong?" "Lucky guess. The Lawsons lived here in Abelum a long time. It's nice to have one of you back again. Anyway, don't let an old man's rambling keep you. Enjoy yourself. Have a look around." Uh-oh. So the girls go wandering through the fair, and they come across a table with like really, really beautiful tarot cards. And Ray stops to ask about it. And it turns out that Everly, right, the witchy half-sister, is the one who's running the booth. So Victoria approaches, super freaking attitude toward Everly, and tells her to give a reading to Ray. So she does. And the cards are not specifically named, but it sounds like she pulls the Tower, the Ten of Swords, and a third card, the Death card. And if you are unfamiliar with tarot in any way, those are not very good cards, especially not all at once. Not a professional in any way, but I'm pretty sure that those are associated with danger and betrayal. The Death card does not mean literal death. It's usually indicative of a big life change. But with that, Everly gets a little skittish about this reading and doesn't really say anything else. And lucky for her, a woman comes up and interrupts them. And Victoria drags Ray and Anaya to a bar. It's usual drunk fun time until Ray starts to feel Leon, and he's there with an equally hot, tattooed and pierced friend of his, and they're talking in the corner of the bar, stealing glances at her, and she can't stop looking and trying to eavesdrop. When they go outside to smoke, Leon makes very specific eye contact with her, and she follows. Okay, girl. So when she goes out to smoke, they went outside around the corner into like the alleyway. Leon and Zane are kind of toward the end of the alleyway smoking, and she's kind of at the lip of it or at the mouth of it, and calls her out on it. And he's like, hey, if you want to eavesdrop, you should get closer so you can hear better. So she goes over to them, noting that they emanate heat and she feels safe around them. We're formally introduced to Zane in this piece of the book, like from her perspective. It's Leon's best friend and past lover. There's lots of flirting between the three of them, and so begins our first like true spice interaction between Leon and Ray. He's getting all up in her business, and he says, mercy. That's all you have to say, and the game will stop immediately. Makes sense. You're giving me a safe word? Jesus Christ. Christ isn't here, only the devil, and he enjoys willing victims. Says, your heart is beating so fast. I think you're excited, Raylan. Do you want to play or do you want to leave? I'm not reading anything else, but his fingers go in places and it's crazy. And Leon is like watching at the mouth of the alleyway, like for people to come or look out or whatever. I was like, oh my God. In chapter 9, we're back to Leon's perspective, and Zane gave him a lot of crap about being obsessed with Ray and how his last obsession didn't go very well. Like the last time that Leon loved a human, it was like 400 years ago. It was a French guy who refused to give him his soul, and so then Leon just had to watch as this person that he loved died, right? Like went through like the human aging process and passed away, and it completely like obliterated him. Zane is obviously very concerned about Leon developing feelings again for another human. The other thing that's going on, demons have two names. There's the name we are known by. I was Leon, and it was how I introduced myself, the name by which I was called. But there was also the name by which I was summoned, a name that could only be written and never uttered. It was the name that commanded my very essence, a mark that was connected intimately to my being. My mark was written in the grimoire, and as such, whoever had the grimoire could summon me at will. Being summoned felt like fishhooks wrenching my insides through my navel. It demanded obedience, but merely having my name called by my summoner was only a nudge, a suggestion. Kent is calling him by his name, like calling Leon, right? So he's getting this nudge, and Kent is being very incessant about it and continuously calling on him, and he doesn't understand why, because he's like, if Kent wants me so bad, like he would just use my government name essentially, like the grimoire name, and summon me, but he's not. So finally Leon, teleports and goes over to Kent's house, and he's like, what the fuck is your problem? And Kent says, I need you to get Raylan Lawson, like she's the next sacrifice, and you need to go and kidnap her and bring her here alive. Leon's like, that's weird. And also, that wasn't a command. And also, you're not holding the grimoire, and you look a little shaken. Puts it all together that he doesn't have the fucking book. This is why the Hadley brats had latched onto Ray so quickly, like goddamn leeches eager to feast on God's favor. It made sense now. Ray was born here, her family had likely been here since the town was first built. Some unfortunate ancestor of hers had gone down into the mines and came out with the God's mark on him forever. Him figuring out that he does not have the grimoire, he picks up Jeremiah and is like strangling him and about to murder him, and he tells Kent to dismiss me now and I'll let your son live. So Kent doesn't really have a choice. You're dismissed, demon. Leave my presence, leave this house, go back to hell. God, it felt good to win. Jeremiah dropped to the floor in a limp heap, and I vanished with a grin and 2 middle fingers up. He's free. He's free from Kent. Again, keep in mind, though, the grimoire is what Raylan found, right? Like, she found it in Anaya's library, or in Anaya's bookstore. Okay, so this is getting a little interesting. In the following chapter, Ray feels really weird. Like, there's something off in the air. You can just sense it. Jeremiah's not at school. Victoria smells like alcohol again and can't put her vape down, and Ray just feels super anxious and wants to walk home. She kept thinking that the walk home would get easier and easier, but instead it gives her a more and more eerie feeling over the next couple of days. Ugh, gross. I pulled my shirt up to cover my nose. The wind had shifted, carrying with it the awful stench of a dead animal, sour and rotten. I looked into the trees, expecting to see a dead raccoon or maybe a deer, but there was something else standing between the trees. In the dim light, I thought I was just looking at some bleached, gnarled branches between a maze of trees. The bone-gray limbs were patched with moss and spread out, some high, some low, reminding me of a spider's web. But it was not a web, not a spider. At the conjunction of those strange branch-like appendages was a rib cage with taut, graying flesh stretched over the bones. There was a spindly, spine-like neck and a canid skull with the jaw hanging open and a long black tongue lolling out. That's horrifying! So scary. She writes it off in her mind, not wanting to accept the situation in front of her, and says, oh, this must be like a really creepy art installation from the festival, and presses on, but she keeps hearing noises, things in the woods like approaching her, and the smell is getting worse and worse, and she's like in the middle of the road freaking out when, luckily for her, how did I phrase this? Lucky for her and the first to die in a horror movie ass, Leon comes flying down the road in his pickup truck and she gets in. He's pissed off, asking why she's walking in the dark. He says, Raylan, I don't want to catch you walking at night again. His tone was vicious but desperate, almost pleading. Drive your goddamn car. I don't know what you're used to in California, but no matter how many streetlights come on here, they won't chase away the dark. They'll never illuminate the trees. What a good sentence, dude. They'll never illuminate the trees? Super angry, begging her to drive to school and to not go into the darkness. He drives her home without needing directions. And she's a little bit like, hey, you stalker creepy fuckboy, why do you know where my house is? He plays it off. He doesn't really play it off. He just tells her to shut up, basically. And a little bit more tension between them, but he drops her off and leaves. In chapter 11, she's watching a video of Marcus's death. Hey, why would we do that? It's gruesome. There's lots of stab wounds and blood, and who did it? You can hear the voices kind of, but they're distorted, and that person is still not caught. But she thinks that that's maybe why Leon doesn't want her walking alone in the woods, because obviously there's a fucking murderer still running around. Yeah, maybe. She decides, though. And oh my god, I hate Ray. She's my least favorite character in this whole thing. Just because, like, the lack of self-preservation and, like, survival instinct is, like, my biggest pet peeve in the entire world. Just have some common sense, dude. It pisses me off. She decides, regardless of all the warning against it, that she's going to go to St. Thaddeus Church and the White Pine Mine. Her plan is to do this, to go to this haunted area with the grimoire and use it to cast a spell, summoning a creature of some sort, but she decides that she will leave out the whole give me some of your blood part of it, so she'll just like halfway go through like the summoning and then not do the final piece of it, so that way maybe she can get some spooky stuff on camera and it's really good like clickbait for YouTube. And she's still a little iffy on her belief in demons, but she doesn't want to do anything stupid. You know, she thinks, like, if anything, that the demons who would hear her would just laugh at how bad she is at trying to summon them. I spoke to my camera as I walked around recording some backstory for the viewers. In 1899, 40 miners took the lifts down to the lowest level of Abram's notorious silver mines. 2 weeks later, only 3 of them came out alive. The tragedy of 1899 changed Abram forever, bringing its booming mining industry to a sudden, grinding halt. The mine experienced a massive cave-in, and the lowest levels rapidly flooded, leaving the miners trapped inside. Over the coming days, as they waited for rescue, the men survived in the only way they could, by cannibalizing the dead and later killing and eating the living. After 2 weeks, the rescuers were finally able to clear a path down, right here at White Pine. Only 3 men remained alive, including the owner of the mining operation, a man named Morpheus Lehman. The bodies of the others were never recovered. Even now, the legends of what the miners experienced underground lives on in the small town's local culture. The rescued men claimed that they met a monster, a god who had been sleeping deep in the earth. They claimed this god granted them mercy, allowing them to escape in exchange for worship. According to the legends, Morpheus would eventually buy the church located near the rescue site and dedicated it to the worship of the underground god. So in the church, she gets there after she does this introduction for her fans, for her subscribers. She feels unsettled. But knowing she has to film this demon summoning thing for clickbait, she opens the grimoire to the page of the golden-eyed monster and notes how familiar that it looks. She goes on to read the cobbled-together summoning while drawing the needed sigil and chalk. And as she finishes both, the chalk breaks. Her knuckles hit the wooden boards enough to cut her hand and make her bleed. The blood from her hand drips into the chalk circle, and now it's steaming. She inadvertently did an actual summoning. So she's trying to convince herself that this isn't happening, but smoke fills the church, and the flash of her camera that she was using to illuminate the space shatters, like the bulb shatters, and the smoke from the candles that she had placed around the summoning area begin to take shape, and the monster appears with its golden eyes. Oh, Jesus Christ. It's Leon, right? We all kind of knew this. Leon appears at the dramatics hoping to instill fear before he kills whoever summoned him, but luckily or unluckily for him, it's Ray, and he laughs at the absurdity of it all. She recognizes him, and he immediately projects his human form as she pulls out her phone flashlight to confirm that it's him, and she's pissed, thinking that this is a prank. So this is why I am, like, not a fan of Ray at all. Like, she convinces herself that this is a prank and gets all pissy and gets an attitude with Leon for, like, sneaking up on her and stalking her into this church, as if that's the explanation. So we cut to Leon's perspective, and he's pissed. He's pissed about the summoning. He tells her that she has no idea what she has gotten herself into, that it's dangerous, that she didn't listen to him. She pushes back, talking about how he can't tell her what to do. One of the things I've highlighted from his perspective is, God, I wanted to put her over my knee and teach her a lesson. She hadn't even given herself any protection. No herbs, no sigils surrounding her feet, nothing. No one with a bit of sense would do something so ridiculously dangerous. And for what? She didn't even seem to realize what she'd done. She thought it was a prank. But then I noticed the camera set up on its tripod. She recorded this. She'd done this for a video. You little fool, I said softly. You hard-headed, insolent, reckless woman. Shut up. Why the hell are you here, you creep? What the hell is wrong with you? Did you follow me out here? She truly didn't understand. She thought I was merely here by coincidence. I was honestly stunned into silence at the realization. Never in all my centuries of existence had I been summoned by accident. He, again, realizes that she has the grimoire. That book was my ticket to freedom. All I needed was for her to hand it over willingly. The protective spell on the damn thing meant that I couldn't take it by force. So there's flirting and tension between them, and he lets her go, like he really has to. He doesn't really have a choice. He has to be smart about how he handles her in the situation, and so she makes a break for it and runs into the woods. He lets her pretend to get away, but he can smell the magic on her, and he knows that all the Eld beasts and all the other freaking gods monsters are going to sense it as well. So he needs to make sure that she gets out of the woods alive. And so he kind of chases after her. In the following chapter, she is running in the woods. She's getting lost in her thoughts of her attraction to Leon and the fear of being followed. There's snapping twigs. The smell of some sickly sweet death overcomes her. But she makes it home safe, and she gets ready for bed. And she's replaying the situation with Leon and how it didn't make any sense, but also how attracted she is to him and the threats that he made and the tension between them, and that she would give in and give him anything that he wanted. Like, she is down bad for him, dude. She drinks some wine and she goes to sleep, and when she wakes up at 3 a.m. to a strange noise that she can't pinpoint, she gets up to get some water. And when she turns the lights on, she swears that she sees somebody standing in her yard. That's so scary. The next morning, she wakes up from a dream that she can't really remember, but all she can smell is seawater, which is also horrifying. She's feeling uneasy, but she's excited to watch back her recording from the day before, like from her ritual. I paused the video. These didn't seem like the words of a man who hadn't just pulled off one of the world's most elaborate pranks. He sounded furious, even desperate, when he was asking for her to give him the book. I restarted the video, skipping ahead just a few seconds to the moment right before he grabbed my wrist. There was a single frame in the blur of motion when he grabbed me that looked different. I struggled for several moments to pause it at just the right spot, moving the video backward and forward until there. A single frame, a frame that should have shown Leon, but it didn't. Instead, it showed a dark figure with Leon's face, with golden eyes and grinning, sharp teeth. One slightly blurred frame that felt like a puzzle piece sliding into place. She knows he's a demon. This is how she finds out, right? She is coming into this entire situation completely blind. Like, she knows nothing really about the lore of this town other than what she just did for her paranormal activity shenanigans. Like, her parents didn't warn her about it. She has no idea about demons and all this other stuff. So this was a crazy reveal in the first book of her putting it together of like, holy shit, this guy is a scary demon, and I can't tell anybody about it because nobody's going to believe me anyway, but the summoning circle worked. And so she's very jumpy when she goes back to school on Monday, because now that she knows Leon's secret, she is like scared that he's gonna like off her and that he would get rid of her before she could say anything, but she knows again that nobody would believe her anyway. So she spends the day looking over her shoulder for Leon, but he doesn't show. Rather, he appears somewhat out of thin air toward the end of the day and talks about playing their game. She confronts him that she knows what he is and that she isn't giving him the grimoire, and there's just tension. We're very clearly establishing a consensual non-consent situation. I'm not reading with details of the thoughts that she's had or the discussions, but just understand that that's what we're getting into. And with that, she decides to play into the game and run home to, like, tempt him. Leon's perspective, he's thinking that humans are truly a demon's prey and they love the hunt. Her running from him is a game, and one that he enjoys and hasn't done in a long time. She was my summoner, but she'd already technically dismissed me. The moment the grimoire was in my hands, I'd be gone from this awful little town and her life would go on as usual. Well, that wasn't entirely true. There was no guarantee that the monsters would lose interest in her, and the Hadleys weren't just going to leave her alone either. I frowned as I walked, irritation making me quicken my pace. With or without me, the Hadleys would have had Raylan as their sacrifice, just another victim, lost to Abelham's notorious bad luck. She'd disappear, her body would never be found. Her friends and family would search, they'd create campaigns and give interviews and weep on live television, but Raylan would be gone, her soul consumed by a god. That bothered me. Whatever, I'd never met a human who wouldn't leave me for dead and kick me while I'm down for good measure. It wasn't my business what went on in the human world once I was gone. Ray was amusing, but not worth the trouble of risking my life to stay. I had already wasted time keeping the Eld away from her. Sure, buddy. He's down bad as well. As I said, they go into this running situation. So she's running home, but she doesn't go home. Instead, she runs into town and then she runs into a church. So he follows her in there. He's showing her more and more of his real form and, like, teasing her with temptations of, like, hooking up. And as she's about to give in, an Eld beast busts through the door of the church, and so ensues a fight scene. Snarling, white eyes shot through with reddened veins rolling about its head. It stalked into the church and rose up on its thin, deer-like back limbs. Its teeth clipped eagerly, a sound like a chattering of a cat chasing a bug emitting from the bare bone jaws. Leon, do something. Do something? Oh, Leon, do something. Save me, please. Oh, please. What happened to be gone, demon? What happened to trying to bash my head in with a crucifix? What is it? What the hell is that thing? Leon cracked his knuckles and rolled back his shoulders. One of the Eld. They're ancient creatures born of the blood and misery of dark places. They're the kind of things that come skulking around when you cling to dangerous magical artifacts that you have no business keeping. She watches as Leon and this monster are duking it out. Leon didn't look human anymore. His hoodie had been torn apart in the struggle, laying his chest bare. His myriad of colorful tattoos couldn't cover the long, deep scars etched into his skin. The veins in his arms had gone black like inky roots snaking their tendrils up from his clawed fingertips. He hung his head back, catching his breath, his teeth all elongated and sharp. He ran a gory hand through his hair, streaking the blonde with dull red of the monster's blood. His eyes, when he turned them on me, were bright and golden as the sun. So he defeats this monster. And her first thought is, I should have been disgusted, horrified, I should have been running, but instead, I wanted him to wrap those blood-stained hands around my throat. I wanted him to manhandle me with even a fraction of the strength that he had just used to rip that thing from limb. I was staring down what was very likely the most dangerous man in Abelham, and I wanted him to rip my clothes off right in that graveyard. They're in the graveyard. After this beast died, there's a lot of flirty banter stuff going on, and she asks, pretty straight up, like, stalling, trying to... She's not chickening out of the situation, but she's just, like, maybe a little slightly, like, nervous. So she says, why do you want the grimoire so badly? It contains my mark, my sigil. It's the last physical record of it remaining on Earth, and having my mark means being able to summon me. Once I have it, I'm destroying it, and I'll never return to this godforsaken town. If I give it to you, will those things go away? Will they stop coming after me? Maybe. Maybe? What the hell am I supposed to do then? Try offering me your soul. Offer me your soul in exchange for protection. She says, no. Lots of tension and banter. In the following, Leon is super direct and sarcastic and, like, just shit talks the entire time. And I said, and it's hot, okay? Shut up. Don't look at me like that. You're still listening to this video. You're a freak, too. In the next chapter, it's literally just them hooking up in a graveyard. Literally, that's it. We go back to chapter 18 from Leon's perspective, and The dude knows that he's in over his head. Like, he knows how much he wants her, and he wants her soul. And the more, again, like we talked about, the more souls that a demon collects, the more status that they get in hell, the more money, the more powerful, the more just, like, everything that they are. But he doesn't want it for that. He wants her soul because, like, he wants her in every way possible. I'd offered a damn good bargain, too. Considering the circumstances, my protection should have come at a far heavier price than just her soul. What else was I supposed to do? Stick around and risk my life and protect her out of sympathy, out of kindness? I'd been trampled over by enough humans to know better. She'd pay or I'd be gone. I'd take the grimoire and I'd be on my way. They're walking back to her house, and again, more like establishing relationship and talking and stuff. And he's straight up trying to tell her to, like, get out of Abelum and stay out, like, stay away from the Hadleys. They're part of the cult, and the Eld will continue to go after her now that she's been touched by magic, like after she did the whole summoning thing. And she keeps dismissing it. She's like, oh, it's a wives' tale. Oh, like, you're just lying to me so that I give you my soul. Like, none of that's actually true. She just watched him destroy a monster. Hello? What do you mean? She pisses me off so bad. They get to her house, and her cat, Cheesecake, is on the front porch, which is really weird because she locked up. Like, the cat should not be outside whatsoever. But her front door is cracked open. So Leon goes all super mode, jumps in ready to defend her, pops his head inside to, like, smell and see if there's any people around, and there's not, but there's remnants of a witch. A witch had been in her house, and the only witch that they know in Abelum is Everly, Kent's daughter, but the Victoria and Jeremiah's half sibling. And wouldn't you know it, Everly dug through Ray's things and found the grimoire. So now she has the book with Leon's name in it. And I don't know if I said it before, but I'll read this just so you understand the book and its purpose too. Even the most non-gifted mortal can use the words written in the grimoire, but once they no longer have the book, it's impossible to remember what it was written. Attempts to copy the text will rapidly fade, becoming illegible. Once I destroy the grimoire, no one will be able to summon me ever again. Right? So he was excited. They hooked up, they had this whole conversation, and she was going to maybe give it to him and he would be released. But instead, it's gone. They have some more conversation about kind of some history and some context of the world. What do the legends in this church have to do with the Hadleys? Morpheus Lehman owned Abelum's silver mines. His son Benjamin changed his surname to Hadley after his father's cult nearly got the family run out of town. Morpheus was the first summoner in centuries I hadn't been able to kill. He'd been careful, obsessively so, a smart man, trapped underground with his miners when the shaft collapsed. He discovered many things in those long-forgotten underground caverns. He'd found the remnants of an old religion centered around the weakened god that spoke to him in the dark. He'd found the grimoire, written long ago by a powerful witch, and by extension, he'd found my name. He found the iron amulet the witch had made, offering him additional protections from me. And this amulet is what Kent has. That's why he can't hurt Kent. This amulet actually plays a really big deal, so just remember that. It's like a protection thing. In regard to the book being gone, worry began to knot inside my chest. Why the hell had the witch been here? What did she want? Everly wasn't like her father. From what I'd observed, she was as much as captive as I had been. Her mother had been the same, bound to Kent by love and the shared blood in their child. Kent protected Everly with the same possessive obsession one would protect a prized weapon. And without the grimoire, she was his greatest weapon. Now, the fact that she had come here alone was strange. Gone. The grimoire was gone again. Had Everly taken it back to Kent? Was I about to be forced back to him? Or had she kept it? The grimoire was written by the founding witch of her mother's coven. It was her birthright. It was all the knowledge of the witches that had come before her. Everly's power was still feral, untamed in her blood, but if she were to harness it, if she were to escape Kent and train herself to command magic, I shivered. Witches were not to be trifled with. An Eld appears, and Cheesecake is, like, meowing at it. He's still on the front porch, and they're, like, kind of in the front porch area having this whole conversation and this realization about the book being gone. The Eld is at the tree line. Cheesecake is growling at it, and then Cheesecake runs after the beast to try and scare it away. And cats are apparently the only animal that live both in hell and on earth. Oh, So Leon loves cats, and so he goes to chase after to kill the Eld and save Cheesecake, which is cute. Leon does end up saving Cheesecake. He gets the shit beat out of him, though, and he's super hurt, but he brings Cheesecake back to her safely, and he says, stay inside, burn these herbs, leave the lights on, don't be an easy target. Okay? The following day, she wakes up late, but she's in one piece. Cheesecake isn't affected by what happened either, but she does decide to drive to school for once. Like, she'll actually start taking the car. Between classes, she goes to the library and finds a secluded area and begins reviewing footage from the St. Thaddeus summoning incident. Hours of footage, enough for a 2-part series, and she's excited. This might be a real break for her. But as she's reviewing, Leon comes up behind her and says that she shouldn't post it, that it'd piss off the council in hell. And she pushes back like, oh, hell has a PR department? Jesus Christ. And he just shrugs. They kind of do. Anyway, there's tension and flirting and teasing, and she keeps denying his offer to give him her soul. Why do you want my soul so badly anyway? What do you get out of it? Status, power too, when the energy that makes your physical being is bonded to me. And of course, a new possession. We demons have a thing for possessions, if you haven't heard. Well, I'm not your possession, and I don't want your deal, so off. Just how do you think that you're going to survive without my help? I'll figure something out. The internet has plenty of resources, and I'm sure Kent Hadley would be glad to help. Have you not heard a single thing that I've told you? Kent is not your friend. The Hadleys will gladly make you disappear the first chance that they get. Yeah, the god and the mind, the cult. If Kent was so evil, and if you hate him so much, why didn't you kill him? The Grimoire called you the killer, after all. Was it meant literally, or just to refer to you being a total buzzkill? That pisses him off, obviously. It turns into a whole, spice scene in the library to punish her for being a brat. While that shenanigans is going on, let's check back in on Zane and Juniper. In chapter 17 of book number 2, from Zane's perspective, he gets home, right, from the night at the pub, right, when he went there with Leon and they were talking about life and Leon being free. He goes home after that. Come to find out, Juniper is there, and she's posted up with, a gun and some burning herbs to ward off the monsters, and it hurts him a little that she would be so scared. But he also kind of beats himself up about that, too, because he's like, I'm not her babysitter. Genuinely not my problem. He has to tell her now the stuff that he learned from Leon, being Marcus is at the bottom of the mine. Fine. The bad news is that your dear brother Marcus is in White Pine. Fucking how that bastard threw him down in the mine. Yeah, shame about that, but he is technically buried again. He's underground at least. And what the hell is the good news then? Oh, right. Well, the good news is that I found out where he is. I told you bad news first ruins the impact. She's like, I fucking hate you. That's so funny. It's not funny. It's actually really, really sad. And then it turns into a whole spice thing. Just all kinds of spice in that one. They go and get Marcus. Right, so they go up to White Pine. They go to the mine shaft to go and save Marcus. And she's having flashbacks. And she's also hearing God calling her name and thinking it's Zane. So she's like, what'd you say? He's like, I didn't say anything. Oh, it's scary. They push on. He jumps into the mine. She rappels down into it. And they find Marcus's corpse, but something else had found him first. In chapter 19, it is a horrifying description of finding her brother, surrounded by golems. Have we discussed what a golem is? Because there's elds, there's golems, there's reapers. There's another monster too. I don't know if I've described golems. They're just another freaking creepy ass scary monster guy. Anyway, but the golem, oh yeah. Ah! If they move slow enough and quiet enough, the creatures won't sense them. So Zane makes his way over to Marcus's body, begins to take him toward Juniper when she feels the tentacles, like the god's tentacles, wrapping around her, like around her ankle and her body, and she begins to scream and run, and Zane tackles her, covering her mouth and pinning her so that they don't move. The monsters begin creeping around them, calling for their sweet, tender, living flesh. The god speaks to them, and there's a whole fight scene and really intense moment as Zane goes full demon mode to save Marcus's corpse and Juniper to get them all out of the mine. They get out to the top, and she's ashamed that she did all of this for a half-eaten corpse, and now Zane is bruised and limping, and she is just kind of embarrassed about the whole thing. he swore, turning for the trail. He didn't say another word as we made our way back down the hillside through the forest. When we reached the car, he put Marcus in the trunk, wrapped in the blankets that we'd brought. Only when he was in the car, seated beside me, did he lean his head back for a moment and let out a heavy sigh. The fucking sucked. I giggled, and then I laughed. It wasn't even funny, but I laughed because I couldn't cry. I was exhausted. All the adrenaline drained out of me. I was grieving. I was horrified. I was confused, so I laughed because if I didn't, I'd scream. Yeah, it really did. You smell awful. And then he's like, I got corpse juice on me. Jesus Christ. So Zane takes her and Marcus to the dad's old cabin that, like, she stayed at way earlier in the book. She asks, oh, this is so sad. She asks Zane to leave them alone so that she can bury him. She's upset with herself for not saying thank you to Zane for all of this and getting hurt and everything, but she's just very emotional and doesn't really know how to handle it. So then she spends the rest of the day digging Marcus a grave and letting the guilt eat her alive. She falls asleep and she's having another flashback / nightmare combination thing, and she awakens to the sound of the monsters digging Marcus's body out of the shallow grave that she dug, and she just loses it. Just grabs her gun, runs out there to confront like the 6 or 7 eld beasts that are out there that are taking his body and just accepting her fate as they get her gun away from her and start just going ham and just like trying to unalive her. And she just doesn't care. And it's so sad. Like, it is such like an emotional moment that happens. Zane couldn't drive away. He went down the hill. He was going to give her space, but there was just something in him that he just could not leave her alone. I said he's fucked and he's in love, but he won't admit it. But thankfully so, because after a few hours of stewing in his car about his feelings toward her and about this whole situation, he convinces himself to go back and check on her, and he finds her being attacked, looking lifeless. And he kills every single one of the beasts that are there, even when they run. He's strong. The souls he's collected gives him a lot of strength that he rarely flexes. Like, he never has to use all of the strength that he has, but this is one of the few times that he kind of maxes out. He gets her. He takes her to his car, and her first question is, where's Marcus? It's just sad. So he's upset. He's like, you almost died for a fucking corpse, Juniper. Like, you almost became a corpse. And she begs for no doctors, and he doesn't know who he can trust to take care of her. So he takes her home to get her medicine and get her cleaned up, and it's like the epitome of like a whole wound cleaning scene. Everybody has one of those in one of these books. So he takes care of her, and it's very, very cute. He's beyond caring. He's very much a sweetheart. For as much as this whole like pain, pleasure, like BDSM stuff that's happening in this book, he is an incredibly caring person. The very next morning, they go back. Zane carries her back to the cabin in the woods. And by the way, just for like context too, killing all of the eld around him and having all the dead corpses kind of scare away all the other monsters. So it's not like Marcus was going to get taken again in the night. So he goes and takes care of Juniper. And then the following morning, he carries her back to the cabin in the woods. He leaves her out of the line of sight while he buries her brother and then places a big log over it so that they can't dig him up again. Afterwards, Zane brings her to the grave and leaves her so she can have some private time with her brother. Within the whole him taking care of her the night before, he says, I never want to hear that sound again, Juniper. I never want to hear the way that you sound when you're in pain like that, when you're scared like that. I slaughtered them all, Juniper. Every single one. I promise you right now that nothing that dares try to hurt you gets to live. Nothing. That's hot. She says, I'm coming for you, fuckers. I murmured. I kissed my hand and laid it to the dirt in one final goodbye. Then I went back into the cabin and collected a few things that I had. As I left the house, locking the door behind me, the wind picked up and rustled through the trees, tracing a cold chill up my back. Juniper. I turned. Even on a sunny day like this, shadows lay beneath the trees. There would always be dark places in these woods. I'll find you. The voice was a hiss on the wind, but it was also a whisper in my ear. The god had come so close to having me once, it would never forgive my escape. No matter how far I went, no matter where I hid, it didn't matter. It would always be looking for me, grasping for me, trying to drag me back into the dark. Find me, I said softly, glaring into the trees, into the shadows where wicked things hid. I'll be bathing in your servant's blood when you do. You can't stop me. The wind blew harder, colder. The trees groaned under the sudden force. All you can do is watch the destruction. By the third day, after this whole incident and her being attacked by these beasts, she's tired of being hurt. She's like, I'm worthless just sitting here. Like, this is a waste of time. This is stupid. I don't want to do this. And so she goes outside to go and run around the lake. And Zane is pissed. He's like, you tore open one of your stitches. Like, you were bleeding. Like, Juniper, in general, I find humans to be painfully fragile, annoyingly delicate. Bump one of you the wrong way and suddenly you've got broken bones. But you're not going to kill your own mortality by breaking your body again. Opening your own scars won't make them disappear. Don't try to get philosophical. I don't deserve to just sit in the house. You tell me not to be philosophical, yet here you are imposing arbitrary stipulations on your own healing. You know what demons do when they're hurt? We sleep. We'll sleep for years if that's how long it takes. What the hell do you mean you don't deserve it? What does deserving have to do with it? Why does it matter to you? You need to stop asking that question, because neither of us is ready to hear the answer. Later, she has another nightmare, and she wakes up screaming, and Zane is there to comfort her. She goes on to explain what happened to her, and this is the first time that she's told it to anybody in forever, because the last time that she told people, they all called her crazy and, like, locked her up in a fucking mental institution. Zane wasn't looking at me with disbelief. He was just nodding slowly, his eyes narrowed. There was nothing comfortable about telling him this, but there was a relief in getting it out. I should have died. I was meant to, but here I am. Alive, even though I fucked up so many times. That's why I say I don't deserve it, because every day since then, I've earned survival. I've earned staying alive. When I do nothing, when I let someone else help me, it's like I didn't earn it, and so I don't deserve it. I didn't want him to look at me with pity. I didn't need any sympathy. I just wanted to say it. I just wanted it understood. My brain worked in fucked up ways, and I didn't know how to fix it. But if I was going to be vulnerable, I figured I'd go all the way. There was still a part of me that feared he would laugh, and God, that would be worse than pity. I shouldn't have told you that. I don't think this shit would make any sense to Demon anyway. Probably sounds ridiculous. I looked up finally. My expression hardened so that if he laughed, at least he wouldn't get to see that hurt. But he wasn't laughing. I didn't know what to call the expression that I saw on his face, only that it felt gentle despite the bright eyes and sharp teeth. A little bit of back and forth later, talking about, kind of arguing this idea of deserving it. And he goes on to say, I don't believe in fate or higher purpose. I believe we take these rare, unusual, nonsensical lives of ours and do whatever the hell we want. Don't waste your life punishing yourself. You've got eternity at the end of all of this. Your mortal life will end, but hell awaits. You'll outlive the Hadleys, the Liberi. Despite all of the pain that they've caused you, you'll see more than they ever will, and maybe that frightens you. Don't let it. I'd like to see what becomes of you, Juniper Kynes. A human like you, in hell, can be a powerful thing. I don't know why. The whole, you'll outlive the Hadleys and the Liberi. Oh, God. Oh, God. I think this book does such a good job at the way that she is portrayed and the way that she is dealing with these, thoughts and the PTSD and this, guilt. So one of the other things that he learned, right? We learned Marcus was in the pit. What we also learned, though, not having the grimoire, that now Kent has a weakness. He doesn't have Leon working for him anymore, and so now they might be able to attack Kent and the kids more and not have to deal with the wrath of Leon. The plan, though, for them is to take Everly out first, because Everly does have magic. They don't know, Zane and Juniper don't know that Everly has the grimoire yet, but they do know that Everly is the only other one that can really attack them and use magic. And so the plan is to get her out of the way first and then go after Kent and Victoria and Jeremiah, etc. So they begin to stake out the house. Juniper follows Victoria, and Zane follows Jeremiah. Chapter 25, Zane's perspective. Jeremiah's a douchebag. Nothing really to say. Really what they learn from that is that Everly ran away. They make a plan that she'll continue to watch Victoria and Jeremiah, and Zane will use his, demon sensing abilities to track down Everly, because witches have a strong scent. And she goes on to talk about how much that she wants to hurt Jeremiah and the bad things that she wants to do to him, and it turns into a spice scene. I don't know what you want from me, dude. Juniper is stalking Victoria, and she ends up going to a lunch with Raylyn. And so Juniper's in the corner watching them in this cafe, and she notices a woman outside in the rain just staring at the girls. And it's Everly. They make eye contact. Everly bolts. Juniper runs after her. They run to the end of an alleyway. Everly uses magic to go invisible, and then projects magic onto her to like force Juniper to fall backwards. She jumps up, she manages to like grab her purse and knock some stuff out of it, and then Everly turns invisible again and then bolts. So it's like, shit, what the hell? And then Zane appears because he could sense the magic, and so he's like, what the hell? And she's like, what the hell? You're not doing a very good job tracking Everly. And he's like, I'm here, aren't I? She used magic. So I felt it. Lucky for them, though, they don't know where she went. Obviously, she went invisible and disappeared. But one of the things that fell out of her purse was like a map that had like a bunch of X's and trails and markers and stuff to get to her house. Maybe we'll find out in book 3 if we make that video. I'll tell you why she had that. She says, oh, well, I guess you don't have to track her anymore. We know exactly where to go. And in chapter 28, they are walking through the woods trying to follow this map, and Zane goes on edge because he can sense somebody watching them. And it's a monster. It's moving too quickly even for Zane to be able to fight, and it throws Juniper against a tree and she passes out. Fucking escalated insanely quickly. She wakes up though, and she's in Everly's greenhouse. Everly's demon, Callum, is the one who attacked them in the woods, and she apologizes for how rough he is. As a reminder, Callum is an archdemon. He is like right below Hell's Council. He's like an old war general. Like he's super old, super powerful. He has like pitch black eyes. He is like a horrifying, incredibly strong, fast, like top tier demon. Zane didn't stand a chance. As strong as he is, didn't stand a chance against this guy. So she wakes up. Everly's apologizing. They have some very heated back and forth of Juniper holding Everly accountable for like what she did and the role that she played, and Everly saying, I'm not my father, I'm not my mother, like I'm here to make up for those mistakes, like I don't believe that's not my God, like I don't want you dead, Juniper, I need you alive, I need you to finish what you set out to do. And what is it that you think I set out to do? Kill the Hadleys, destroy the Liberi, make sure that they can't complete another sacrifice. That's why you're still in Abelum, isn't it? I can only guess that your brother's death brought you back, but revenge made you stay. That's why you're out here, isn't it? You came out here to kill me? Well, I sure as hell didn't come out here for a goddamn tea party. Are you trying to bargain with me? I'm trying to make it clear that I'm not your enemy. You mean you turned against the Liberi, against your family? They're not my family. They were never my family. The blood of the coven is thicker than the water of the womb, and I am the last of my coven. Our goals are intertwined, Juniper, yours and mine. What are your goals, then? To end all of this. To kill the god. What? She said, fuck all y'all, I'm killing God? That's wild, dude. That is wild. By the way, so that's what the entire third book is like Everly, a brand new witch working with the thousands, millions-year-old demon to get enough strength to kill a god. And like the history and the lore and the magic and the like building magic practices and learning stuff to be able to defeat the god. Okay, that's what book 3 is. It's so good, dude. So I was like, oh my god, this crazy bitch. She also tells Juniper that the best day to kill Kent would be on October 31st during a Halloween party where everyone will be drunk and he'll be like most likely to be alone. Okay, so they got a game plan. And then we cut to Zane. He's being chained up by Callum, and Callum's just talking mad shit to him. Callum's so funny. It's just a whole chapter of them bantering back and forth. And at the end of it, Callum grabs onto Zane. They teleport to be directly in front of Everly and Juniper. It was Juniper who touched me without a doubt. The relief that rushed over me at the feeling of her hands on my back was so profound that it made me laugh. She was alive. I could feel her mind's pulsing uncertainty and worry. I could smell her sweet scent and feel her soft skin. I leaned into her. Her arms tightened around me. What the fuck did you do to him? You said you wouldn't be hurt, Everly. He's fine. He's just being dramatic. From Callum. I was being dramatic, yes, but I'd gotten Juniper to be all soft over me as a result, and that was immensely satisfying. The vicious little thing actually cared. If we lived, I'd be sure to tease her about this for the rest of eternity. I'm sure you're both eager to go. Good luck to you, both of you. If we meet again, may it be in a better world. Oh my god. Chapter 31, the following chapter, they make their way out to their car, and Juniper is just thinking to herself, and she's very out of it, and he calls her on it. He's like, what is bothering you so bad? I'm fine. It didn't go down how I thought it would, but Everly told me some shit about Kent that may help us. Good, that's good. Yeah, it'll at least help us prepare us for our next I don't give a fuck what the witch said. I meant it's good that you're all right. It's good that you're not hurt. It's good they didn't hurt you, because I don't know what the fuck I would have done. So they like admit their feelings for each other. He tells her that, yeah, he has her body and soul, but he wants her heart too. It's so sweet. In chapter 32, they have another spice scene, and this is where we get introduced to this guy's like red room. But it's interesting because, again, we're brought into this, like, he asks her to chain him up because he didn't like the feeling of being chained up by Callum. And so he's like, hey, I still have those like memories and it's still bothering me, and I don't like that feeling in the way that I felt when I didn't think that I would see you again when I was chained up. Like, can you help me reclaim that? And so they turn it into a spice scene with him being chained up, and I was like, oh my god, okay. So much spice happens after that, by the way. Like, it goes, I'm blushing. It gets like really intense, dude. Yeah, anyway, in chapter 33, Juniper goes outside and she sees a monster. This one is a Watcher, which is a new monster in the arsenal. Watchers seek out the prey of larger, more dangerous creatures. In hell, they're known to follow reapers around so that they can feed on the fear of their victims. That's what sustains it, fear. It will aid whatever is hunting you to increase your fear, your panic. By itself, there's little that it can do to harm you, but it can make you vulnerable. It can overwhelm you. It can distract you. That's how it hunts. And so when she like makes eye contact with the Watcher, it gives her like a waking nightmare of being trapped, and then God wrapping its tentacles around her. And then that's when Zane comes over and saves her and then explains to her what that monster is. Super freaky, by the way. On that note, let's go back and visit Leon and Ray. Let's see what those cool cats are up to. Ray's going to school. Normal stuff. She gets home and it's dark, but she can feel the eeriness, right? She can sense the monsters. She can hear them. She can hear them sniffling around in the cacophony of howls, and then the screaming, because Leon is actually watching her. He won't admit it. He won't say it out loud, but he is watching her and trying to take care of her. The following morning, she's exhausted and she's stressed, but she's getting messages from Violet and Jeremiah to study together, and she keeps turning them down, saying that she's busy, but maybe it's some other time. Because what Leon did say to her is kind of getting to her. It is kind of, I don't know, sinking in that maybe there is some other things going on and maybe she should be weary. She then, again, this stupid bitch, she hears a noise on the side of the house. She decides that it must be one of the monsters, and it's during the day. So she decides to grab her baseball bat and she's going to go around the corner and hit it. It's obviously Leon, and Leon's like, what the f*** told you to stay inside? And like, what do you think you're going to do with a bat? You saw how it tore me up. Like, what exactly do you think that you're going to be able to do? But he's there because he's taking the skulls of the Eld beasts, putting them on stakes and putting them around her yard to keep them away from her house. And so she's following him around, asking him more questions, getting information about this. What happened last night? Did you kill all of them? Did you kill all of them? No, I didn't kill all of them. I led them away, Raylan, and killed what I could. You expect me to kill every bloody Eld in Abelum? Kill this for me, Leon. Kill that for me, Leon. Do you have any idea how goddamn tired I am of you humans expecting me to just kill everything for you? You snap bones with your bare hands. You're the strongest being I've ever met, okay? I figured you could kill anything. And she sees that his wounds are worse than she thought. Leon... It will heal. The beast's cut deep. I was trying to be careful. Didn't want to hurt the cat. You're limping. You're hurt, Leon. It's nothing. I've had worse. But it wasn't nothing. It was a wound he'd sustained while trying to protect me. While trying to protect Cheesecake. He let himself get hurt rather than risk injuring the animal that I loved. He could have let Cheesecake die and abandoned me to the same fate. But he hadn't. Why the hell did this demon care if I died? It's filthy. It'll get infected. Demons heal far better than humans do. It's fine. Come inside. Let me clean it. Inside? Yes, come inside. Get a shower. Let me clean it at least. Please, let me help you. The next chapter from Leon's perspective. I've said it before, but the demons have like a super smelling ability. So him being in her house is driving him crazy in a good way, but it makes him want her more, to leave a mark on her. And we learn a little bit more about demon lore. That is what we demons wanted in the end. To possess, to own. We liked to leave our marks, some temporary, some more permanent. The silver hoop with the green jewel in my left ear had been pierced and threaded through by Zane, and I'd put a needle through his tongue in return. A mark was a bond, a claim. Even demons that hadn't been lovers in years kept each other's marks. She gets the stuff to clean his wound, and she says, God, what the hell would you have done without me? She said it playfully, but there was a note of real concern in her voice, and it made me frown, and I shrugged. Likely go to Zane's place and sleep it off. A few days of solid sleep can heal almost anything. Although under Ken's control, I would just hope for a few days of sleep when I was injured. He never quite grasped that demons need time to heal. She's continuing conversation with him, trying to distract him from the pain while she's working on this, and she says, You said hell is like Earth. Is it really? It's bigger. So big that only the oldest of demons have ever seen the ends of it. There's wide, empty plains, forests so deep and filled with monsters that only our strongest dare to go in. I had stared at the ceiling as I recalled it. I'd been on Earth for over 100 years. I wasn't all that old for a demon. Nearly a quarter of my life had been spent here in captivity. There are oceans as clear as glass and black as ink, trees bigger than Earth's tallest mountains, the cities, their art, metal, glass, and stone, carvings of marble and wood. What do you do there? Do demons have jobs? Most do. It keeps us occupied to do something fulfilling, but we come and go as we please. Resources aren't limited. Money and economies are non-existent. Precious metals are common there as dirt. We do whatever pleases us. It sounds more like heaven than hell. Heaven is overrated. Too many rules. And they go on to talk about how he misses hell. He hasn't been there for so long. Like, he literally just has been in captivity and getting tortured by this family, and he details a little bit more to her in this moment about some of the things that he endured with Kent, and it's just not good. You miss it every day. Our eyes locked. There's something about those wide brown eyes that felt as warm as her hand, as bright as the sun, as deep as the forest. Eyes that were searching my face for answers, for insight, as if she could crawl inside my head and nest there like a little bird. That damned curiosity of yours. I was like that once. I think I envy you, to still look at the world with such fascination. You still can. If you live in the dark long enough, you forget what the light feels like. Another banger sentence. If you live in the dark long enough, you'll forget what the light feels like. At the end of it, she says that he can rest on the couch until he's healed. And he says, oh, come on, like, convince me to stay. Give me something worthwhile to stay in this house. Like, tell me your deepest, darkest desire. Okay, so she does. She tells him her darkest ones, and he gives them to her. It's a whole chapter of a very kinky spice. As I said, I don't get paid enough to be reading smut on the internet. But it's hot, okay? Shut up. Go read it for yourself. I have a quote about her feelings on it, though, that I highlighted. I was scared. Of course I was scared. I'd always chased fear so I could experience it on my own terms, in exactly the ways that I wanted. In fear, I found desire. In fear lived all the ancient sensations that demanded I know I was alive and struggling and feeling. Say mercy if you want our play to end, but beg for me to stop and plead for your life if you want to continue. Every word was pushing me deeper into the cavernous bond between our imaginations, deeper into the fantasy of fear and captivity he was weaving, the fantasy that I was helpless, his fighting prey. But that fantasy wasn't true. Even as I allowed myself to indulge in it, he was watching every breath I took, watching my pupils swell. He could smell every chemical change that went through me. He could hear my heart speed up and slow down. He knew my every reaction on an even more primal level than I did. Hey... That's how you do, like, spice stuff correctly. We have clear and enthusiastic consent. We have safe words. We have boundaries that are established. We have a discussion beforehand. Very engaged and, like, in tune, knowing that it's, like, an illusion thing and that she's actually the one that's in control in that situation. Like, it's just an illusion that he is, but really she is. You know what I'm saying? Like, the spice is done well enough in here that it's, like... I can actually read it and be like, oh, that is hot, because I'm not concerned for her life like I feel like I am in every other fucking romance novel that I've read lately. Anyway, afterward, there's aftercare too. He gets her tea and cookies, a little snack, and the experience took the last of his energy though, right? Because he is still hurt and healing and stuff. So he passes out, and this stupid bitch, I keep saying that about her, but I swear to God, by far my least favorite character. I don't know, she takes pictures of him while he's asleep on her couch to document. And then she goes outside to take pictures and videos of the steak skulls. And then she has a nightmare. She goes to bed, has a nightmare, more flashbacks to her ancestor in the mines on the day of the accident. She gets this like overwhelming feeling of nothingness below them as they go down the shaft, the smell of seawater, the unease of her ancestor discussing with his partner, Kynes. And when she looks at his face, it's blank. There's no mouth, no eyes, no nose, utterly blank, and she awakes to the feeling of drowning. Over the weekend, she goes to get lunch with Anaya and Victoria, while Leon continues to sleep off his wounds. Victoria's running late, and so it's just Anaya and Ray talking about scary movies and hanging out when she starts to hallucinate. She's like looking outside, and she sees this cloud with tentacles. Hold on, I'll read it, because it's actually like really scary. I need you guys to understand how horrifying this is. There was something strange about the clouds. I'd never seen clouds move like that. They were so dark, almost black. The pale glow of lightning flashed behind them, but in the illumination, I realized those dark gray coils weren't clouds at all. They were tentacles, massive, thick tentacles moving through the clouds. Suddenly, it was as if my head was being squeezed. Every beat of my heart felt too hard, too slow. I wanted to look away. I wanted to close my eyes. The sensation of drowning was burning through my lungs as if my dream from last night was trying to yank me back in. The smell of damp earth, salty brine, rot, panic tightened in my chest. Beyond the clouds, beyond the dark tentacles, the vague silhouette of something truly incomprehensibly massive was moving. So Anaya's like, hey, are you good? Are you good? Like, you were just, like, zoned out and, like, looking crazy. And she thinks maybe Leon hadn't been lying. Maybe there really was a god in the mine, because that horror, that thing I'd seen in the clouds, was the closest thing to a god I can imagine. So Victoria shows up. There's more chatter. What's really important to kind of take out of this is that the Hadleys are hosting the Halloween party. Interesting. Ray's excited to go because she can snoop around their house to try and find protections that Leon mentioned Kent having. Okay, we also learn that Everly is missing, and Ray thinks to herself that if Everly disappeared, she probably had a damn good reason. Ray goes home. Leon is still asleep, but his wounds are mostly healed, and this fucking dumbass gets the bright idea. I'd somehow managed to conjure up enough magic. What was that accent, Kaylee? Enough magic with some old markings and strange words to make a demon appear at my command. So why couldn't I make him do other things at my command, like stay and protect me for start? The sketchy website luckily provided instructions for drawing a binding circle. With my laptop in one hand and some white chalk in the other, I crept downstairs to confine my demon. She draws a binding circle around Leon while he's asleep, healing from his wounds. And then she leaves to go to Target to go and get some Halloween decor so that the steak skulls in her front yard don't look as horrifying, like they can look Halloween themed in case Anaya or somebody else comes over to her house. And when she comes back, she's on the phone with her dad and they're just chit-chatting. She mentions to her father about running into Kent to kind of gauge reaction to see if he's freaked out by that. And her dad really doesn't have one, just notes that their family is weird and one of the founding families of the town, that the Lawsons were too. And before they can continue the conversation, Leon is yelling her name. Leon wakes up, understandably, incredibly pissed off over the binding circle. One would imagine, right? I mean, dude is a 400-year-old demon famous for killing everyone who has ever summoned him. He's been nothing but kind to Ray, going above and beyond to protect her and be honest with her, and he fucking trusted her enough to go to sleep on her couch and relax in her home, and he wakes up to her trapping him. So to have tasted freedom, to have lost the grimoire, to then be stuck with this fucking crazy woman who he's like really likes and he's trying to be open and cool with, and she pulls that? Dude, he's like beyond full of rage, just screaming her name. He doesn't want to hurt Ray. Like, he acknowledges this. He says the idea is vile to him, but he does want to make her regret it. Oh, okay. So he manages to get out of the binding circle because Cheesecake comes over to him and like rolls over the chalk, and so that like breaks the circle. And so he suddenly makes the room go pitch black. Ray says that she feels like she fell into an abyss. She tries to move, but she trips and hears his claws. He's crawling on the ceiling, like laughing at her. She begs him to reveal himself, that she's sorry. She realizes she fucked up, and he tells her about his captivity. And in response, she gets naked. He's asking her, he's like, why would you even do this to me? Like, lesson fucking learned. This is what I get for trusting you. Like, what the And she's like, I just needed you to protect me. Just for a little while, not forever, just until I Until what? Until you manage to move away from here? Until you run far enough away? God damn it, Ray. Don't you get it? It's you. They're after you. They'll keep coming after you. What do you mean? I told you the real reason the Hadleys are so goddamn friendly to you. They'll keep coming after you no matter how far you get away from this town. You're meant for their god, Raylin. You're the sacrifice. Why me? 3 survivors of the disaster in 1899, 3 who ate the flesh of their fellow men, 3 who were chosen by the Deep One, 3 lives spared, but that God does not spare for nothing. In return, some days those lives must be given back. So this is the first time that she's hearing that her family is part of that lineage, in which case I'm like, how did the lore of the names of the people not happen? And like, your granddad just didn't pass down that story that he was a minor? What do you mean? How is she so fucking dumb? How does she not know that? I know she moved away from the town and stuff, but still, like, dad never mentioned anything. Her grandparents never said anything. Like, what do you mean? There's a spy scene involving his belt. Shut up. No. After all of that spice and everything, they go outside to have more conversations about what's going on in the world and with them and feelings and like blah, 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 blah. And she's asking how old he is. And he says, I don't have any memories beyond the 1700s. My kind don't give much attention to age. You're immortal then? Old age and disease won't take me. I could grow bored and fade away like some of my kind do, or I could be ripped apart. That would kill me. Crush my skull and I probably wouldn't be able to heal. I'm immortal if I'm careful and if I wish to be. I'm not very careful. Living forever isn't so terribly important. She goes on to ask more about the god, about the situation. 3 survivors, 3 sacrifices. The Deep One promised power to those who fulfilled its demands. It's been asleep for a long time. It's weak. But with 3 souls, it will be free, and the human world will come under the rule of an ancient god once again. The Hadleys already sent me after you. That was Kent's last command. Bring you to him alive. Make your disappearance look like an accident. Leave no evidence that you'd been taken to be murdered. Your family would have had a funeral without a body. Why didn't you do it? Kent had lost the grimoire, and I don't have to do shit he says without it. But if he had it, you would have come after me? He stiffened a little and was silent, and then finally he said roughly, Kent tried and failed to sacrifice a girl before, Juniper Kynes. He got Jeremiah and Victoria to lure her into the woods, drug her. When she ran, he sent me after her. I lost her in the woods. There was consequences for failing to fulfill Kent's orders, so I did everything I could to hunt her down, but she escaped me. Why did you protect me, Leon? Why are you protecting me? Why? Like, what makes me any different than the last girl? I decided I wanted you. I saw you, and I felt not anger, not hatred or fury. You were light in the dark, and I've been in the dark for a very long time. I want you irrevocably, but I can't settle for less than all of you, body and soul, Raylin. We demons, when we see something we like, we need to possess it. It's in our nature. Does it frighten you to be so desired, to know I want you regardless of time or distance, to know I want you as mine, wholly possessed without question? How could I be frightened of the very thing that I wanted? She's thinking internally. I couldn't imagine being desired so determinedly that eternity wasn't a question, but a demand. It was not only a promise of protection, of safety, it was a promise of ownership, desire, bondage, a reassurance of forever. Can't settle for less. It's enough to drive me to fucking madness, Ray, wanting you so fucking badly, but I've lingered on Earth for far too long. I want to have you, but I can't unless you agree. That's the curse of it all. I can't linger here and watch you die. I'm not gonna die. Oh, but you will. You will, as all humans do. That light will go out and death will take you from me. But with your soul, death can't touch you. The God can't touch you. Nothing will take you from me. And then he tells her about the time in France with the person that he fell in love with and how he had to watch them die. Oh, wait, no. Oh, actually, wait. Oh, this is so sad. I forgot this is even worse than I remembered. You used to come out here to feed your fairies. He said, you believed in something you couldn't see, something you couldn't grasp. I did too once. Boulevard du Temple, Paris, 1755. There was a young man with a violin and a fire in his heart. I believed with such certainty that he would be mine, and I was so young, so much imagination. Humans grow old so quickly. Your lives are the blink of an eye when you see all of eternity stretched out before you. Yet I kept bringing honey to something I couldn't hold, I couldn't possess. He died. His fire was gone so easily, and then my name was called by strangers to Cairo. By the time I'd freed myself and went back to France, I never found his grave. I searched, I haunted cemeteries so long that they began to tell stories of me. Zane found me there. He dragged me back to hell, told me I was mad for a human whose soul I could never possess. So then he's like, I can't do this, Ray. Like, I have to leave. I can't go through that again. I can't. I don't want you to go. Then make me stay, properly, not with petty magic tricks. Go inside, doll. For tonight, I'll watch. In the morning, I'll go. That's not fair. No, it's not. I've yet to find fairness anywhere on Earth. It's so sad. That's so sad. So, in the following chapter, we're back with Ray, and Leon has been gone. Ray's been avoiding the Hadleys, Leon's been away. She's trying to make friends and do things without them, but they always show up, and they're always texting her and inviting her to events, and she's starting to get very unsettled by it. She's eating in a secluded courtyard on campus when Jeremiah walks up on her and is, like, very, very creepy and confronting her about avoiding them. So that night at the cabin, she's missing Leon, and she's getting nervous about the Hadleys' Halloween party. Days pass, and she's getting more and more unsettled. The bugs stopped making noise, the birds stopped chirping, the deer stopped visiting. It was getting too quiet, and the skulls on the stakes were deteriorating. She manages to get a Saturday sleepover arranged at Anaya's apartment, and she's thankful to get away for the night. Like, she's just, like, can't be in the house. She's getting too antsy. She's grabbing cheesecake and making sure that she can get her way to Anaya's as fast as possible, and after some freaking out, she falls asleep, and it's the best sleep that she's gotten in weeks. Anaya's fiance is out of town for the week, and so she insists that Ray stays there. After seeing how freaked out Ray is about all of this, she's like, girl, just, like, stay here. Like, stop, don't, like, get your stuff, come back and relax. So Ray agrees. She drives to the cabin to get some things so that she can stay longer, and she's feeling hopeful. She'll survive this. It'll all be okay. What the hell had I just seen? The road was empty, but I could have sworn I'd seen something pale as moonlight, humanoid but naked, long, too long in all the wrong places, horned like a stag, but there was nothing there. I stopped again. Something was on the road, not just one something, but three. 3 tall, pale, white figures. Their necks were too long, their shoulders drooped, and their arms, too long, too thin, hung slack. I couldn't be sure if they were draped in rags or if their skin was drooping and wrinkled. Their long legs ended in bizarre 2-pronged hooves, as if they were wearing massive heeled shoes backward on their feet. They stood in the middle of the road, scattered as if they'd been wandering, and my approach made them pause. It came slowly to my car, every movement accompanied by a cracking of its joints that I could hear even with my windows rolled up. My knuckles turned white on the wheel. If I didn't move, I wouldn't incite it. If I didn't move, maybe those milky white eyes wouldn't see me. The creature leaned forward and placed its bony, pale hand against my window. Wetness spread around the thin fingers as if it was waterlogged, weeping down the window pane. Then, from behind the stag's skull, it spoke with a harsh whisper that hissed right through the glass. It waits for you, Raylan. It waits in the deep, dark place. So she slams on the gas. She's like, I don't give a fuck if I hit one. Goes flying by, runs into the house, and she's thinking at the end of the chapter, I have to figure out a way to fight. I wasn't going to die a sacrifice, and I wasn't going to disappear, forgotten in these godforsaken woods. Okay. In chapter 30, we're back to Leon's perspective, and he says, I couldn't leave her. I'd resigned myself to it. By day, I'd search for the grimoire and the witch who'd stolen it, and at night, I would return and watch Ray's cabin in the dark to make sure that the beast didn't get too close. The golems, those were the creepy f***ers that I just described, had woken up. The whole forest smelled like their rot. Mushrooms were sprouting up like mad. If the gods' human servants weren't giving it what it wanted, then it would send the golems to do it instead. Pale white beings that stalked the forest in silence, their intelligence far beyond that of the Eld. He hits up Zane. Leon goes to meet with Zane to kind of talk about everything. Ends up getting information about where Everly is. Zane gives him a heads up about Callum, is like, hey, she's cool, like, she's whatever, but also she's got an archdemon that is like a psychopath and almost killed me, and like we don't stand a chance fighting him. So heads up on that. And also, you're crazy for freaking out over this girl. So they're just like talking mad shit to each other about being in love with these girls. It's cute, it's a little bromancy. But with that, Leon decides that he's gonna go and find Everly. Hello, this will be the last jarring transition, I promise. I just had family dinner, I'm back. Chapter 31 in the first book, we're with Leon. He's going to Everly's house to go and find them. He makes his way there He breaks in, not sensing any demons, so he's thinking that maybe Callum and Everly are out running around or doing something. He didn't sense him until it was too late. Callum, again being much larger and stronger and faster, almost kills him before Everly comes downstairs and tells him to stop. She essentially forces Leon to admit his love for Ray and promise to keep her alive, and Everly will give him his sigil. Raylan was never supposed to end up with the grimoire. I made a reckless decision to steal it from Kent, but the way that he has always watched me, I couldn't keep it hidden on my person. I shoved it in a box and I thought that I could go back for it later, but fate is merciless sometimes. She had, I think in the third book we talk about it, but she stole the grimoire and then put it in a box at their office, at the historical society office, and then they got carted away for donation, and that's how it ended up at Anaya's bookstore. And so now Raylan is involved in all of this, and so she apologizes for stealing it, but she's also like, hey, it was never really intended for Ray, that was my bad, I kind of lost it. And so then she forces him to admit his love for her because she wants him to protect Ray. I need you to keep Raylan alive. Time is running out. The Deep One is restless, and my father knows it. If he gets Raylan, then I might not be able to kill the god. You what? You're trying to kill the god? You can't be... She means it, Callum said. I've been alive long enough to see gods die, Hellion. They're not above death. God damn. Dude, I still can't get over the sentiment there. That's so cool. So she's like, he admits that he has feelings for Ray, and he swears that he will protect her. And so Everly rips out that page of the grimoire that has Leon's symbol thingy, sigil. I folded the paper up and tucked it into my pocket and turned for the door without a word. It was no concern of mine if the witch killed the god, or if all of Abelm burned, or if humanity itself was wiped out under the heel of a sadistic god. But Raylan, she was mine. I wasn't about to give up what was mine. In chapter 32, it's time for the Hadleys' Halloween party. Ray's getting a weird, uncomfortable feeling about being there with Victoria and Jeremiah, worried that, what if they are actually trying to kill her? And as she's talking to Jeremiah, she can feel Leon's, nudging. She can feel his, fingers on her and stuff. So she's like, I know he's here. This is, really weird. The party goes on, and Ray is drinking a bit to take the edge off and waiting for everyone to be drunk enough for her to go snooping when Jeremiah approaches her and hands her a drink. And this stupid... I feel like every single time I cut back to a Ray chapter, I'm saying that. She drinks it. She takes a drink from Jeremiah and just starts sipping on it. So she's dancing and she's swaying in one of the corner of the rooms and vibing to the music when a couple from across the room are eyeballing her. The woman approaches her and asks her to dance with them, and so she does. Obviously, it's Zane and Juniper. We'll cut back to them for a second because this is actually pretty connected. Here out, we're going back and forth between them a lot more. I just had the craziest deja vu moment in my life. That was weird. I'll take that as a sign I'm doing the right thing in life, right? Zane and Juniper were getting ready for the party, and there was cute banter, and there was him talking about wanting to pierce Juniper's tongue, and she's like, maybe one day, you already have my soul, what else could you want? And he explains the whole importance of piercings to the demons. It's party time, so they go there. They're completely covered up. They have face paint. They're totally covered. You wouldn't know who they were, but they go to sneak in to Jeremiah and Victoria's with the intent of killing Kent, right? That's what Everly had recommended that they do. They're there, they're partying, they're flirting, he's making them drinks. As he's making them drinks and mixing it, Jeremiah comes over and is talking shit to Zane, and he's like, oh, are you a bartender? You must get all the bitches. And then he's like, this is how you really get their attention, or this is how you get them to do what you want. And shows him drugging the drink that then he gave to Ray. So Zane is watching Ray get drugged, right? So he goes back over to Juniper, and Juniper's like, yeah, I saw it. So they're the ones that are dancing in the corner of the room, and they realize, okay, Leon is obviously not keeping an eye on this woman. She's trying to die again, no sense of self-preservation. Juniper is eyeing her from across the room, goes over, starts grinding on her, pulls her over with Zane. So then it's the three of them kind of sandwiched, and Juniper tells her to stop drinking. And instead, Ray just shoots back the rest of the drink. in response to that, in response to this freaking dummy shooting back the rest of this alcohol, they rush her to one of the nearby bathrooms. Juniper like shoves her fingers down Ray's throat to make her throw up the drugs. They tell her what's going on, and in that same moment they're like, hey, how about you don't take drinks from the Hadleys? How about you know that they're trying to kill you, and you try not to just serve yourself on a silver platter? And then she recognizes Zane, and she's like, is Leon here? And that trips out Juniper, because again, Juniper has not ran into Leon. Zane has been doing a really, really good job about keeping Juniper and Leon separate, because like, Juniper doesn't forgive him for chasing her down in the woods 6 years ago. My God, the drama, this poor man. When they go to leave the bathroom, after she threw up the drugs and made her drink some water and everything should be good, Leon is standing outside in the doorway. Zane, Leon, Juniper, and Ray are in the hallway outside of the bathroom, and again, this is the first time that Leon and Juniper have been near each other since the whole kidnapping and trying to kill you thing, and she's still angry at him. And, oh yeah, and her brother thing, oh my God. She's only sparing his life because Zane is his friend, but he was at the top of her hit list, and she makes sure that he knows that. She's a baddie. So Leon takes Ray, and they go off and do their own thing. Zane and Juniper go off and do their thing. Leon and Ray, it's more of like him very horny, angry, confronting her for putting herself in dangerous situations, and he doesn't understand why she would even come to Kent's house. He tries to explain the logic of like her wanting to find something to protect herself. Ultimately, they come to an agreement that if he helps her find something to defend herself, that he'll pierce her nips. Okay, aka mark her, right? Big deal for the demons. So that's the trade, that's the deal. They're kind of creeping around the house trying to find an artifact or find something to protect her, and she's very skittish, right? They're walking by windows and she's scared of what's in the trees, and he's clocking it, and so he says, why are you afraid of them lurking around when you know that the most dangerous thing in this house is me, and I'm on your side, lucky for you. Are you? Excuse me? Are you on my side? Really? What the hell gave you the idea that I wasn't, Ray? You plan on leaving again, don't you? I don't know what I'm supposed to do if I don't find something here to protect myself. Those things won't leave me alone. I came back. Doesn't that count for something? It's temporary. I don't do temporary. You have forgotten. You're mine, Ray. Frankly, I should punish you for daring suggest otherwise. And then it turns into a whole punishing thing. And then in Kent's bedroom, a big old you to Kent. Leon then, he's like, hey, I always wanted to desecrate this bed. Like, I'm happy. Like, fuck Kent. Fuck all of this. He's like, however, there's a secret passage in here that leads to the downstairs, and that should be where the artifacts are. So they're kind of digging around the bedroom. They find the passageway, and they're walking around in this space, and she asks if he has found the grimoire, and he says, no, I didn't find it yet. Lucky for you. The more I reminded her how lucky she was that I was still here, the more I felt like a complete asshole. Implying that the grimoire was the only thing keeping me from leaving was a vile lie, one she couldn't possibly believe for much longer. I'd gladly admit that I was generally a dick, but Ray made me want to be nice. To her. Only to her. Everyone else could get fucked. Then they come across the cellar, the horrible room where he was kept, and he says, yes, I was kept in there, on and off for 100 years or so. This was the basement of the old house before Kent rebuilt it with his fancy block of glass and concrete up there. I used to watch the roots grow through the dirt walls until Kent poured more concrete and sealed the door, and there was no light, no warmth, nothing. I glared over her head back toward the room. I'd spent hours, days, weeks in there with various generations of Hadleys who had no use for me. Just a tool tucked away in the dark before they thought of a task for me again. Stuck in that damned tiny room, in that damned tiny circle, staring at the wall until my mind went numb. Her arms were around me. She wrapped them tight around my middle, her head against my chest, and she sniffed and squeezed a little tighter. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. My first instinct was to pull away. I didn't need comfort. I didn't need her apologies, and I didn't need her feeling sorry for me. I hated pity, and her apologies were empty because it wasn't she who had locked me down there. For centuries, humans had imprisoned my kind when they could and run from us when they couldn't. In return, we'd tempted them, hunted them, used them. Humans were selfish and fickle, short-lived opportunists. They were not to be trusted, only good for pleasure. Sad. So they go down even further and they find a bunch of the trinkets from the tunnels. When he was first summoned by Morpheus, one of the first tasks that Morpheus had him do was to swim down in the flooded tunnels to get all of the paraphernalia, I guess would be the word, like all of the stuff from the old religion and from the old cult that was down there. Bowls, tools, candles, books, statues, jewelry, anything and everything that I could get my hands on was kept here, from the deepest inner chambers, the ones the miners had broken into by accident. Other people had worshipped the Deep One long ago, and it was their artifacts that Morpheus had wanted. It was these artifacts I'd feared Kent would figure out how to use and turn them against me. She ends up finding a knife that is like enchanted in some way, and it gives him the heebie-jeebies, and so she's like, okay, so this should be able to protect me. Like, if it's giving off bad juju to you, then hopefully it gives bad juju to all the monsters, and if I stab one of them with it, they'll die. They're like going back up all these different stairways to get back into Kent's room to leave. Even down here, the scent of cigars was strong, perhaps even stronger than it had been in the bedroom. I hoped that knife was worth it, because lingering here was a risk we really shouldn't have taken. Ray reached the door first and pushed the metal plate to slide the bookshelf open. I'd like to see them try to get their claws on me and get in the face full of... dropped like a stone in my stomach. Kent Hadley sat there, a cigar in his mouth, waiting for us. Pretty intense chapter of a confrontation with Kent. He did not realize that it was Leon that was with her. He was wearing a mask, and so he had like a camera, and he like watched all the stuff that happened between them, and he came up there to confront her and be like, what the again, not realizing that it was Leon. So he has a gun. He pulls it out. He forces Leon to take off his mask. He realizes it's him, and he's like, oh, makes threats because he knows that the gun won't kill Leon, so then he threatens to shoot Ray. Leon says, if you kill her, you seal your own death. Kent smiled slowly. Then we are at an impasse. What a twist of fate. The killer becomes the protector. Why? Is her so enjoyable that you could still use it once she's dead? What a thought. You down there in the mine, running against her corpse like a rabid dog. Jesus Christ. All in due time, Kent said, chuckling at his own little inside joke. Today, I'm afraid, is not the day that you die, Miss Raylan, although my children did think that they would be successful. Impatient, those two, always competing, a healthy coping mechanism in my opinion. They are facing the inevitable too, you know. 3 lives once spared is now 3 souls that must be given. Our God is clear, a Lawson, a Kynes, a Hadley. 3 lives, 3 souls. You're gonna sacrifice one of your own children? My father prepared me for such eventuality. I'm sorry that yours didn't do the same for you. Your father, paranoid as he was, always preferred to keep his beliefs firmly planted in logic, never allowed himself to think there was a bigger picture. But there are things that defy logic, things that defy all human knowledge, all science. He stubbed out his cigar and stood, lowering the pistol. We may be at an impasse, Demon, but I still have something to say to Miss Raylan, something she deserves to hear. She doesn't deserve your lying words. My children tell me that you have an interest in the occult, a fascination for it, so I knew you would see the wisdom that your father refused. What wisdom? My father would have laughed at all of this, shaken his head, called it nonsense. He would have come up with a perfectly logical explanation for everything, except there were no logical explanations here. Logic had flown out of the fucking window, crashed into a telephone pole, and gone down in a flaming blaze. These sacrifices are not in greed. They are merely a necessity. It is natural for humans to revisit their death, to fixate upon survival, but this is much bigger than merely 3 lives. The Deep One is waking up. You hear its call. All those meant for it do. For years, my children have dreamed of it. They understand that when one of them is eventually chosen, their fate will procure mercy for all of humanity. The God will wake whether we help it or not. And when it does, when it reclaims dominion over Earth, it will know that humans keep our promises, that we are good servants, that we are worthy of mercy. Ask any archdemon what it was like to live in a world ruled by old gods. Every one of them will tell you they are not beings capable of mercy. This demon lies. How typical. You will not go to the Deep One tonight, Raylan, but soon. Soon you will, and I ask only that you consider my words. Your sacrifice secures mercy for all people. The world is changing. The Great Awakening is about to occur. And there will be pain and bloodshed, but in the end, there will be peace. Peace through your sacrifice. So when you come to die, Miss Raylan, know that you were meant for it. She's fucking Christ. So they leave the Hadley's place, and Ray essentially begins to have like a panic attack over not wanting Leon to leave her. She's like, I'm going to die. Like, they are going to sacrifice me. The world is going to end. Like, losing her shit. And Leon is like, I'm not fucking leaving. I'm not going anywhere. Don't you doubt that I'll have your soul. I'm not letting you get away. I'm not letting anything take you from me. I'll rip heaven and hell and this goddamn earth apart before I let them steal you from me. No. Not a goddamn thing is taking you from me, baby girl. I hate baby girl. No man and no God. I'll kill them all. And so he says all of this to her. Like, he's not going anywhere. He's like, I'll protect you. I'll kill whatever, baby. And then a golem appears. Yeah, like those creepy ass motherfuckers that we talked about before. These monster things are so scary. Cue a fight scene where Leon and this monster are duking it out. It's scary. There's some close calls. At one point, Leon breaks the creature's hand. It lets go of him immediately and then dives after Ray. Its broken fingers wrap around her skull and everything goes dark. All she sees is darkness. All she smells is dust and wet earth. All she hears is water dripping and God's voice calling out to her. Her perception is bouncing between this and the real world where Leon is fighting to get the golem off of her. Every time she goes back into the darkness, the water is higher, the voice is louder, the tunnel is flooding, and she's wanting to find the voice to help her. That the voice will save her. If she can just find it, like, she'll survive. When she wakes up on the forest floor, Leon is standing over her, concerned, but saying that she'll be okay. And he, like, cradles her and stuff. Jesus, he killed the beast. Oh my God, bro. She, like, passes out after this because she is so stressed out and tired and exhausted and, like, that was so mentally draining. And so he takes her to a hotel. She wakes up the next morning in a hotel in, like, the northeast part of town. And we open this chapter with a spice scene. The next chapter is literally all spice that ends with him piercing her nips, like we talked about. In the next chapter, chapter 39, Leon, he's taking care of her, but Veronica keeps calling her. And finally, when she picks up, Veronica says, Daddy's dead. It's done, okay? It's fucking done. Victoria, what are you talking about? My dad is dead, Raylan. I'm not even sad about it. What kind of fucking daughter am I? What kind of father would kill his child? It doesn't matter. None of it fucking matters anymore. I'm not even sorry, Ray. I did what I had to do. We both did. There was a pause. She was holding her breath. She was hiding. Victoria, I'm so sorry about your dad. Don't play stupid. You're not sorry. Neither am I, but it's done. You and that demon did what you had to do, didn't you? Maybe I should thank you. Bye, Ray. Honestly, congratulations. You survived. What? So Ray is excited about that. Obviously, they didn't kill Kent. We know who did. But Ray is excited. She's like, oh, great. Kent is dead. Like, this is over. This whole situation is over. Like, praise be. Everything will be fine. You know, everything will go back to normal. She hasn't missed that much school and blah, 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 blah. And, like, so excited for life to go back to normal. But Leon does not share this sentiment. He is not excited. He's worried about who will step up in his place. The Liberi couldn't possibly give up this easily. The Hadleys were just one family, but they weren't the only family who put their loyalty in the deep one. Or maybe I really didn't like the idea of Ray no longer needing my protection from them. Maybe I didn't like the idea of going back to that town that held so many bad memories for me. Maybe I just wanted to take my girl anywhere else in the world but here and watch her hunt ghosts to her heart's content and never have to think about the Liberi again. They talk about going back to her house. She wants to go back. She says, I'm not really any safer here at the hotel, am I? Like, I might as well be comfortable. I still need you with me. You're mine. I'm not leaving. I think about it every day, you know? The deal you offered. I think about it. It's a big decision, Leon. The way I ached for her soul was nearly unbearable. It was a constant pressure on the back of my mind, an itch I couldn't reach. The need to possess her wholly. We demons had the power to take nearly anything we wanted, but a human soul? That had to be given willingly, and it was fucking torture. I got up from the bed, kissing her forehead as I tugged her head back to look at me. I know. I'm waiting, Ray. I'm not going anywhere. You'll give it to me eventually. Pack up. Let's get you home. News of Kent's death is in the paper, claiming that he did it to himself, right? It was like a unaliving or self-unaliving thing. So they get to her house and things just feel, there's just a tension in the air that can't be pinpointed. And so they go to the gas station down the road for some stress snacks. Ray goes in. Leon's watching the door, but not well enough because Jeremiah and a buddy corner her in the store. He accuses her of killing his father, and he's pretty pissed off about having to pretend to grieve over the guy. Uh-oh. Apparently, the two other friends were supposed to be outside taking care of Leon. They clearly are no longer with us. Leon kills a bunch of the friends, goes to kill Jeremiah, and so Ray flinches because she doesn't want to hear it anymore, but instead, all she hears is a struggle, like a fight happening. It shouldn't make sense. He's a demon. He's a demon fighting a freaking mortal human. That shouldn't really be a problem. Leon is able to finally, at least throw him down and injure him enough that he's taking a little while to get back up, and Jeremiah was laughing. God damn, all of this is a gift. God chose me. It chose me. I made the sacrifices. Two in my name. He held up 2 fingers as if to drive the point home. God rewards sacrifice. God rewarded me. Huh? And then there's like black goop seeping out of his mouth. What the fuck? And while Jeremiah is like bent over trying to like heal up a little bit, they make a run for it. They get in the car. They're like speeding home. Ray is like, what the fuck was that? Like, how did he do that? Like, what's going on? Leon says, Jeremiah gave himself over to the god. That strength isn't his, it's God's. I'm so scared. I'm so scared. Let's rewind a little bit. What's Juniper and Zane up to? After the party, they went their separate ways, and they stepped out of the party to wait in the trees, waiting for Kent to come out. Eventually, they see Leon and Ray burst through the door and run into the woods. Kent comes out shortly after, smoking a cigar while just, like, moseying around the yard, like, halfway looking for Leon and Ray. Zane comes out of the tree line, reveals himself, and intimidates Kent into backing back into the forest, right into the butt of Juniper's gun, where she obviously hits him and he passes out. She takes the amulet off of him, like the protection amulet, so like the demons can't touch you when you wear that, and it like really hurts them. So she rips off this amulet, buries it. She does a little shallow little hole digging thing to hide it so that it stops hurting Zane, and then asks Zane to carry Kent to the garden shed that she saw back further into the trees. The next couple chapters is where this book lost me. There's a reason that the 3rd book is my favorite. The 1st book, Ray, annoys the shit out of me. This book, Spice, gets a little bit too much for me and like a little bit too frequent for me to like be absolutely in love with it. I love revenge. If you've watched any of my other videos, I love when an abuser gets abused. I love a revenge plot. I love justice. I cheer for it constantly. This goes a little far. They pretty much just inflict all sorts of pain. I don't think I can say the word that I would use anymore. I'm not monetized. I'm pretty sure that's like one of the no-no words. But they hurt him a lot, like for a long time. And he dies very, very slowly. Then they have like sex as she's like watching the life drain out of his eyes. You failed, Kent. You failed. Your children will fail. Your followers will fail. Zane's stroked between my cheeks, his movements rough and eager. I grinned. You should have fucking made sure I died, Kent. And then Zane entered me in one long hard stroke. I leaned my head against the stone wall, gasping as he quickened his pace. Kent lay dead beneath me, his blood going cold, but my heat was only increasing. This was what I'd waited for. This was the reason I'd lived. This is why I breathed, to destroy those who dared fuck with me, to reclaim my life over their cold, dead bodies. And then they finish. It dripped down my legs into the pool of Kent's blood as I murmured, "Fuck your god, Kent. It can't kill me." I'm sorry. Yo, this just got like, that's like next level. What? So that's why I'm doing this review, because I'm like, man, you gotta get through some like some crazy shit. I'm all about like being like kink and sex positive and stuff, but like I truly, bro, I'm here for the plot. Please. That got so crazy. And that's like only like, that's like one sentence, dude. It is like 2 whole chapters dedicated to that idea. Oh my god. So anyway, this begins this like incessant Spice situation for the next stretch of this book, which like, again, if you like that, if you're into like the stuff that's being described, it's great. But again, like a homie, truly I'm here for the plot, and I'll be skipping a lot of the rest of this book because it truly is just, it's just smut. They go to a party, a demon-esque party thing. There's like demons and humans and everybody's all watching each other do stuff to each other, and it's crazy. And it's literally chapter 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. It's literally 5 chapters of just that, which is, again, is cool if that's what you're into. Ends up with her getting pierced. He pierces her tongue. So then they have their bonding thing. Yay. The next day, after this party, they're back in Abelum, and she's at the cafe getting breakfast and chilling when she sees Victoria walk by. Victoria's bruised, and she looks absolutely terrible, but she spots Juniper and runs away. Juniper follows her, but Jeremiah comes over in an SUV, spots her. She's trying to explain and like pointing back toward Juniper, but he's just not listening. And then 2 guys hop out of the back of the SUV, essentially kidnap Victoria, throw her in the back, and start driving for White Pine. Juniper's like, fuck, I don't have time to call anybody. Like, I need to follow them. I need to go up here. I can do something. She follows them. And when she gets to the, like, area, the path to go up to St. Thaddeus, she parks, she walks the path. There's 12 cars already there. Like, the Liberia are already there, and they're like, ready to sacrifice Victoria. Talk about emotional whiplash, my guy. She sneaks into the back of the church to see what's going on. Jeremiah has stepped up. He's taken the role to replace Kent, and she watches the ceremony as they, like, carve the god sacrificial stuff into Victoria. She can sense the Watcher, like the little creepy scary dude. She can feel the Watcher around her, and so she's, like, really trying to channel this idea of, like, not freaking the fuck out, because the Watcher will get her fear, and then she'll get caught by these people, and then she'll die, and it's this whole thing, trying to control it. And she just can't do anything other than watch Victoria go through this ceremony. In the next chapter, she follows them to the mine shaft. She's like, I escaped the mine. They threw me in alive. I was able to crawl my way out. Victoria can do the same. Like, I can save her. We can fix this. Like, they won't do the sacrifice. Like, this will be fine. So she creeps through the woods along with them. Instead, when they get to the mine shaft, Jeremiah, like, slits his sister's throat. Juniper is like, fuck. She's like, we're screwed. And now she's in this forest, and there's all these people, and he's about to get sacrificed, and the ground rumbled again, a pulse thrumming beneath my feet. The air felt thick, sitting so heavy in my lungs that I had to desperately suppress the urge to cough. And I realized that something was moving in the mine shaft, the shape of it morphing, constantly changing. The darkness itself moved like ink being stirred. That ink was spreading. It was seeping out. Black tendrils tested the edges of the shaft's frame, reaching out into the air as if grasping for something. There was a gasp and a cry from one of the white cloaks. The murmurs passed through the crowd. God is here. God is here. They began to fall to their knees. As Jeremiah looked over them, the veins in the whites of his eyes turned red, like blood crackling to the surface. He faced the dark again, his chest heaving with the effort to breathe in the atmosphere's sudden thickness. Bless me, God, he said again. Bless me. The tendrils shot out. I clapped a hand over my mouth as they coiled around his limbs like snakes, moving rapidly, wrapping around every inch of skin as if cocooning him. He watched them with an expression somewhere between horror and fascination. And more of the crowd fell to their knees, throwing up their hands, crying aloud, God is here, the deep one rises. But the god couldn't get out. It couldn't. Surely it couldn't. The tendrils enveloped Jeremiah's head. He jerked, and suddenly his mouth gaped open, and the tendrils pushed inside of him, down his throat, making it bulge as he choked. He bent backward, his spine curving to such an angle that he could look back on the congregation upside down. His eyes rolled into the back of his head. He began to rise off the ground. I couldn't even fathom what the hell I was witnessing. His body began to twitch, then shake, then black ooze leaked from his mouth, his ears, his eyes. The rumbling stopped. Jeremiah dropped heavily to the ground. All that remained was the rain pouring around us. The tendrils were gone, disappeared inside of him. No one spoke. No one got up. They merely extended their hands, trembling toward Jeremiah's limp body. Zane appears behind her, puts a hand on her shoulder, and says, "We need to get out of here now." Jeremiah began to rise. He raised his head from the ground, every movement a bizarre twitch. It reminded me of those things, those golems who had taken Marcus's body, but Zane didn't stop. No, he only moved faster. The last thing I saw of Jeremiah was him jerk fully to his feet, black goop seeping from his lips. He said something I couldn't hear, but from the way his lips moved, I could have sworn he said, "Someone is here." I'm so scared. So, yeah. Jesus Christ. So, it's like, obviously, that night is when Jeremiah confronts Raylan and Zane in the gas station, right? Or Raylan and Leon in the gas station. Okay, so we're kind of caught up. Jeremiah's a psychopath. Jeremiah stepped up. He's consumed by the god. It's a little sketchy. It's a little worrisome. Doesn't really change their revenge plot, though. But now Victoria's dead. Fuck. But also good, I guess. Everly's a good guy, so that's great. So really, it's just Jeremiah that's left. Jeremiah and then their mom, Meredith. I think are the only ones that are left on this revenge plot thing. Okay. Cool. So they go back to the Hadley's mansion, so that Zane can kill Jeremiah. He's not home, but 8 henchmen are. Zane slaughters them. A few minutes later, Jeremiah does come home with 3 others. This time, those 3 are heavily armed. A fight scene ensues where Jeremiah is freakishly strong, as we discussed when he had confronted Leon. And Jeremiah stabs Zane with the amulet. There's been a couple days that passed, right? They totally forgot that the amulet was there. The one that Kent wore, and then they dug and they put in the little thing. Jeremiah found it. Stabs it into Zane's back in the middle of this fight, and it starts zapping him of his energy. His body doesn't heal anymore. He can't fight. He's just slowly having the life sucked out of him by this thing. And Jeremiah can smell Juniper. He sends his goons after her, saying, "Bring her alive. She needs to see what happens when you defy God." Which is a horrifying sentence. So they go through the woods to find her. She's kind of watching in the tree line. She kills them, right? She manages to stab one of them, shoot the other one, whatever. She gets to the tree line to see Zane and Jeremiah. Jeremiah is covered in Zane's blood. He was using his blood to carve a summoning circle around him. And he is summoning a Reaper. So when Jeremiah tells Zane this, his first thought is, he may as well have kicked me in the gut. I felt as stunned as if he had. Jeremiah shouldn't have even known what a Reaper was. They were Hell's executioners, massive, intelligent monstrosities with whom demons had formed a tentative pact. If a demon ever became so unruly that the council decided to destroy them, a Reaper would be called to do the job. He was calling a Reaper to break Leon. Jeremiah wants to summon a Reaper to break Leon enough that they can kidnap Raylan to finish the sacrifice. And traditionally, what that means is the demon whose blood you use to summon the Reaper is the soul that Reaper will collect. Okay, that's who they get in return. But in this case, he doesn't want him to kill Zane. He wants him to go do this other task, and then he can have Zane's soul. It's a bargain thing that's going on. Usually the Reapers don't make bargains. Usually they would kill you for even offering something like that and wasting their time. But Jeremiah is speaking as the Ancient One, and the Reaper recognizes that. And so he's I'm doing this out of respect for the Ancient One. And it's super scary. This super scary monster is negotiating with a fucking god over Zane's dying, lifeless body, knowing that Reaper is going to go and essentially kill his best friend. Oh god, and that the world is ending. Oh god. Oh Jesus. So Jeremiah was going to execute him. He was going to kill Leon, and he was using me to do it. My nails dug uselessly into the grass, clawing at the dirt. I would have rather died. I would rather soon let myself be destroyed than be the catalyst to Leon's death, but there was nothing that I could do. Nothing. The Reaper goes to fly away to go get Leon. Jeremiah leaves, and he's Reaper will be back for you later. And looks like Juniper ran away. Looks like you're just gonna die alone. Actually, I do kind of hope she comes back. I hope that she tries to kill the Reaper, and then she dies too. And then he just leaves. So Zane, we end this chapter with him just laying there, knowing that the world is about to end. His best friend is about to die. His girl is also pretty much about to die. And he can't heal or do anything. He's just staring at the sky, unable to move. We cut back to after this situation with Jeremiah at the gas station. They're driving away. They're driving back to her house, and they talk about the situation. Clearly, Jeremiah has sacrificed Victoria, and Leon talks about how much power, that much power isn't meant for mortal bodies. Jeremiah is literally rotting from the inside out by having this God's power inside of him. And he's going to be a pain in the ass in the meantime with all of this extra strength, and especially considering that Ray is the only sacrifice that is left. All attention will be on her. Leon assures her, though, that she belongs to him and he will protect her, and so they're cuddled up on the couch trying to relax. Ray's mind is running, and she's thinking about how much that she wants to give her soul to Leon. She wants to tell him that she loves him. She wants to tell him that she wants to make the deal and give him her soul. She wants to. But then the ground shakes. The bulbs burst in the house, and in pitch black, all they hear is the howl of a beast. A Reaper. It's a cry so unnatural, something no human should hear, a noise that shouldn't exist on Earth. Animals are fleeing, and it howled so loud it's not even trying to hide. Leon tells her to go, drive as fast as she can, and do not stop for anything. He wants her to wait 5 minutes so that he can make sure that it's distracted, and then he wants her to just drive. She's pushing back. She's begging him to come with her. This is the saddest shit ever. Oh, God. He's like, I can't come with you. Like, you have to just go. He reached into the pocket of his jeans and pulled out a folded piece of yellowed paper. When you're far enough away from here, try to summon me back. He held out the paper, and when I unfolded it, I recognized it immediately. This is your mark from the grimoire. You said you hadn't found it yet. If the Reaper doesn't kill me, you can summon me again. I've never given anyone permission to summon me, but if you can, bring me back to you. I knew what this was. I didn't want to acknowledge it because it hurt so bad, but I knew. If the Reaper doesn't kill me... He didn't believe that. He was saying goodbye. I threw my arms around him, squeezing as tightly as I could. I didn't want to let go, but he couldn't let me go. But he wasn't holding me back either. He was gently, so very gently, pushing me away. I'm sorry, Leon. Please don't say you're sorry. No human is ready for forever, and forever is all I have. But you gave me part of your life when mortal lives are so short. I suppose saving your soul could have been as good as owning it, so you'd better fucking survive. You should know that I love you, for whatever that's worth. Stay alive, and don't waste that mortal life. That's so sad, bro. Oh, fuck. Chapter 42. Dude, and I've read this book like 3 times now, and it still gets me. Leon is going to fight the Reaper. There was a hierarchy in hell. Demons, archdemons, and Reapers above all. There were the executioners, having made a delicate pact with the archdemon royals to only kill those demons who had been outcast. But Reapers couldn't be trusted. Demons hunted souls, Reapers hunted death. They craved it, hungered for it, and they were as old as the gods and nearly as dangerous. I'd heard legends of magicians attempting to summon them, kill enough people in offering, and maybe you could get one to show up. They couldn't be contained like demons, nor commanded as we could. Offer them an intriguing enough task, and they may take it, or maybe they'd kill you for even bothering them. I'd fight death as long as I could if it meant giving her more time to run. He knows that the Reaper's not after her, that the Reaper is after him, to hurt him enough for the Liberi to kidnap her, right? We're all on the same page. We see the writing on the wall. We know what's coming. So he fights. The Reaper loomed overhead, its wings spread wide, its laughter thundered through my broken bones, and the pain pierced my head. I'd left an open wound on its throat and one limb hanging weak and useless, but it was still standing. Its glowing eyes still blinked calmly down, unfazed, unworried. It knew. I knew. I should have said a better goodbye. I'd wanted to fight longer for her, but at least I'd told her. At least I'd admitted the thing that scared me the most. The Reaper didn't seem half as frightening in comparison to my last confession, that I loved her, that I'd die for her. Funny, I always thought that I would die angry, that I'd die for hatred and fury. Dying for love didn't hurt any less. It probably hurt more, but I felt better than I thought that I would. The Reaper leaned down. Behind the black gauze shrouding its face, I saw a flash of sharp white teeth. I'm gonna commit to the bit and do a Reaper voice, okay?
Death is the fate of those who anger the gods, but God has a wish to toy with you still. Here is where I leave you, demon. I am not so foolish as to defy the god.
Oh my God. I'm so scared. Of course, Ray, she's driving away. She's crying. She's feeling like absolute crap for abandoning Leon, and she's feeling like she's nothing but a liability. He's done all this stuff for her. He's loved her, protected her, risked life and limb. And so she decides to whip the car around to go and save him. She locks Cheesecake up in the house and sent a rapid, desperate text to Anaya begging her to pick him up in the morning. I didn't know if I'd come back. I didn't know if I'd ever have the chance to explain what was happening, or if I'd get to walk away, if I'd get to walk in my best friend's wedding, or if I'd graduate. I didn't know if I'd talk to my parents again, and I realized that I should have called them more. I should have told them I loved them more. I should have hugged Anaya longer. I should have told Leon I loved him, but it wasn't over yet. It didn't have to end like this. I didn't know which way Leon had gone. All I knew is that if I ran into the woods far enough, I would find him. I had to. She runs into the forest at night, despite all the monsters, despite everything, to try and find him. And she does eventually find him, and he is not doing well. He's alive, but just barely. And she starts crying, and she's like, how do I offer it? I'm not leaving you like this, Leon. Tell me, what do I do? No time. My soul is yours, Leon. It's yours. Please, please, just tell me what to do. Please, I'll go. My name in your flesh and blood. Aw, how sweet. You came back for your poor mangled demon. It's Jeremiah. I see my Reaper did its job. You see, Leon? I told you I'd punish you. Now, Raylan, it's time to stop running. And then all the Liberi people show up out of the woods. They chloroform her, and they take her to White Pine, to St. Thaddeus. This is escalating very, very quickly. So she wakes up. She wakes up, strapped to a metal table. A stranger approaches her, and she's so hopeful. She's like, oh my God, hey, help me, please. Like, this is so crazy. And the person's like, praise be God, 3 souls, 3 lives, or whatever. And she's like, oh, fuck. I'm screwed. Oh my God. So they cover her head. They throw her into a car. She's driven for a long time. Eventually, she's taken out of the car. Whatever. She's at St. Thaddeus. She is on the little sacrificial table thing and going through that entire process. And Jeremiah is standing over her. They perform the ceremony, and they begin walking her to the mine shaft. And the chapter ends with Jeremiah throwing her down the mine. Jesus Christ, right? She survives the fall, landing in mud, slipping in water. Her glasses fell, but there's light. Like, she can see the light from the mine shaft, and she's at least happy about that until they begin boarding the shaft, sealing her in darkness. They ripped her shirt to write the runes, but and they took her phone, but she still has a lighter in her back pocket, the magical dagger that she stole from Kent's house. It was in her boot, and she still has in her other boot, I think tucked away, is Leon's little name, grimoire name thing, okay? She flicks on the lighter, trying to get a feel for her surroundings, but instead she finds Victoria's muddy and naked corpse beside her. And she's like, well, I don't really have a choice. Like, there has to be another exit. There has to be something. Like, I survived this far. I have to get out of this. So she flicks on the lighter. She begins going deeper and deeper into the mine. And so begins a claustrophobic fucking nightmare where there's tight fits. She's being chased by a monster where she's forced to, like, dive into, like, a flooded tunnel and just, like, swim through the flooded tunnel and just hope you get to fucking air. Oh my God, the idea of that, like, stresses me out so badly. She gets to the end of it, and she swims to the shore. Only when my lungs stopped aching did I sit up. The chamber I found myself in was large, the source of the pale gray light impossible to determine. There were old wooden boxes stacked against the far wall, and in the center of the room was another pool. It was perfectly black, like spilled ink. Beyond that, a pile of rubble had collapsed out of another tunnel entrance. She digs into her back pocket, finds the light, finds the page of Leon's name, and she's like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do. He said something about my blood in his name. And so she decides to use the dagger to carve his name into her thigh. She's like, there's nothing left anyway. He might be dead. There's nothing going for me. Like, the least I can do is at least try this. My soul was meant for him, not a god. I was certain of that. My soul was meant for the one who'd protected me, who'd given up his immortal life for a mortal one. I should have offered it to him sooner. I doubted it would have made anything different, but at least I would have the hope that maybe when I left this life, I'd find him again. I knew it was too late now. It was too late for regrets, too late for useless symbolic gestures, but even so, Jeremiah had marked me for the god, but I didn't belong to his god. If I had any choice in where my soul was going to go, there was only one being I wanted to have it. I didn't really care if I bled anymore, so long as I bled for this, for love. It was the only thank you I could offer, my final devotion that he would likely never even know I gave, but at least my choice was clear now. My soul was Leon's, even if the god stole it. It was his, always, as was I. My soul is yours to take, Leon, I whispered. If you're still alive, if you can hear me, it's yours. I closed my eyes as tiredness settled over me like a heavy blanket. I wanted to sleep now, sleep until this was all over, but as my blurry eyes grew heavier, right before they closed, I saw that perfectly still black pool move. Something was emerging. I hate it here. Leon is still on the forest floor. Hours, days maybe later. He has no concept of time. He's just in so much pain and so broken that he can't do anything. All he can think of is Ray and her stubbornness, but she loved him. She really did. And that's all he can think of. How simple and silly that sounded. A 4-letter word wasn't enough to describe the desperation in me, the craving, the need to get back to her. It wasn't enough to describe the absolute fury that I'd turn on those who'd taken her from me, who had dared to put their hands on her. And if they'd killed her, I'd destroy them all. I would hunt them down, every last one, every human who had dared give allegiance to the Liberi. I'd make them all beg for mercy and give none. The murders that had earned me my reputation would be nothing in comparison to the slaughter that I would unleash upon them. He hears like a whisper. If you can hear me, it's yours. He was starting to feel stronger. He could breathe deeply again and not be in pain. I tried to get up too quickly and my legs buckled under me. I knew it was her. I knew it was her hands writing my name. I tried again and I was able to get to my feet, gasping as my healing accelerated painfully, and I could feel every new cell as it formed, every interlocking fiber of muscle pulled tight. She'd done it. She'd given me her soul. Every passing second bound us more tightly together, locking her vibrant, mortal soul into mine. I could feel her like a thread, binding tighter and tighter around me and tugging desperately, trying to draw closer. She was alive. She was out there and she was alive, and I wasn't going to lose her. With every passing second, I was getting strong enough to walk, then to run, strong enough to find her scent, strong enough to follow the tug of her soul on mine. I'd steal her from the hands of God itself if I had to. Oh, this shit's crazy. So Ray, the thing that came out of the water was God. You've come to me at last, Raylan Lawson. My mind couldn't comprehend what my eyes were seeing. Despite not having my glasses, somehow what lay before me was perfectly clear. The being that had arisen from the black pool was both incomprehensibly large and only as tall as a man. It was constantly morphing, growing, and shrinking, an amalgamation of color, light, and absolute darkness. A mere century ago, I spared 3 of your kind to go back into the world to prepare it for me, to spread the word of awakening. 3 lives spared must one day be returned. The work is done, the oath is fulfilled. Look at me, mortal. I've waited for you, Raylan Lawson. I've called to you, even when you wandered far from your home, but you returned to me as you were meant to. No, I'm not yours, I'm not. There was a glitch in its perfection. Beyond the beauty, I could see the gray, slimy skin. I could see a massive form with coiling tentacles covered in dozens of blinking, pale white eyes. I could smell rotting flesh. I could smell the ocean. God smiled with perfect white teeth, like static cutting through television screen. For a moment, those teeth were jagged, curved, and sharp, like some predator from the deepest parts of the ocean. God reassures her that this is her destiny and that she's there willingly. He places a hand on her head, and the memories flood her mind. As a child, hearing the voice in the woods, calling for her, and digging into the dirt to get closer. She would be sitting on a cliffside over the ocean and thinking about swimming to the very bottom. In the back of my mind was the constant feeling that I had forgotten something, that there was something incredibly important that I was meant to do, and yet, no matter how hard I tried, I didn't know what. I was restless, so restless. Maybe if I sunk beneath the waves, maybe if I went deep enough, the restlessness would stop. You see, my child, your soul is mine, to be bound for an eternity of exquisite suffering among those who've come before. Marcus Kynes, Victoria Hadley, and now you, Raylan Lawson. The sacrifice is complete. As I escape this place and the world changes beneath my hand, you will see it all. You will feel the agony, the pain, the righteous fear of humankind. Such is the fate of my chosen ones, to be blessed to suffer for me forever. To feel such pain is beauty. It is the final, ultimate purpose of your soul. Am I going to die? Never. Your flesh will rot, consumed by my servants, but you will go on with me forever. There will be no end. There will be no rest. There will be no respite nor comfort, only perfect, holy suffering. So he makes eye contact with her again, and then came the screaming. Not mine, but the screams of dozens, if not hundreds, thousands of voices, screams of true agony, the kind of sound that made me sick just to hear it. My screams melted among them, and I realized that it would never end. This raw feeling in my throat would go on, this pain would go on, this ripping feeling wouldn't stop. This was the endless, holy suffering that God spoke of. This was the fate of my soul. What? When the God realizes that it can't actually take her soul because she had already sworn it to another, God is pissed, as one would imagine. Tentacled, horrifying form shows screaming that she betrayed her god and it's trying to kill her, to drown her. The tentacles are squeezing, but she manages to use that dagger and stab it in the eye. And then magical dagger, right? So it harms the god pretty badly. When it loosens its grip, she's suddenly swimming to the surface, like to the shoreline, and Leon is there, and he's like cradling her. I don't understand how she kind of, I don't know how that happened necessarily. Like, that's kind of confusing. But either way, she hurt the god, and Leon is there. She's alive, he's alive, and now that she's injured the god, maybe Everly can kill the god. Leon in the following chapter saying, with Callum by her side, I believed that Everly would destroy the Deep One, even if it killed her too. I felt it in her, that wild magic that once unleashed could destroy empires, worlds, even gods. That was her story, her fate. Perhaps I'd never know if she made it out alive. It truly didn't matter to me. Only Raylan mattered, keeping her safe, making sure nothing ever took my baby girl away from... I hate baby girl so much. Mattered more... Baby girl, where are you? Sorry. Mattered more than anything else. This is a serious moment. He then takes her to the Hadley's house to kill Jeremiah, to make sure Jeremiah's dead, to get revenge for harming her. And when he does, there's some other stuff going on. So let's cut back to Juniper and Zane. Let's see what they're up to while this shenanigans was happening. Last we saw them, Zane was dying with an amulet in his back, and the Reaper had just left to go and hurt Leon. Juniper did not leave. She did not actually run away as hinted at by Jeremiah. She was just hiding in the tree line. So she watches for a while, concerned though that maybe Jeremiah's watching, or maybe Jeremiah has some people with guns that are just waiting for her to come out. She waits long enough, makes her way over to Zane, and then she has to like carve the amulet out of his back. Ugh. But it's stronger than ever now because it like absorbed all of his energy, like that's part of it. So now it's this like incredibly damaging, powerful thing. The second that it's out, he starts to heal, but still slowly. But Juniper asks him, hey, can you like squish this amulet down into a bullet so I can put it in this gun, and I'm going to try and shoot the Reaper with it because we don't really have a choice. I don't know what else to do. That's the only way that we're going to do this. And he's like, okay, but also like I'm not going to be able to fight a Reaper right now. Like I need a soul. Like I need another soul to heal faster. And wouldn't you know it, a light in the Hadley house turns on. They make their way inside, and it's Meredith, Kent's wife. She's in the house and she's hiding, and so he makes... I don't have any notes, and I don't have anything highlighted, so we're going in blind. They pretty much bully her into swearing her life to Zane. Zane's like, hey, you really think your God's gonna spare you? Like, you really think, like, your husband is, like, or that your son is not a fucking monster? You're gonna spend the rest of your life suffering and dying and, like, all this other stuff. Like, you might as well just, like, give me your soul, and I can guarantee you, like, at least somewhat of an eternal peace. And she's like, okay, I guess. So he does. Like, he carves his little thing in her. He gets her power. His eyes turn black. Like super demon status. Homeboy just got like upgraded to the next level of scary demon strength. Okay, that's a little horrifying. And then the second that she turns around, Juniper slits her throat, kills her. Hey, that was her last revenge. Other than Jeremiah. As they're doing that though, they make eye contact, and she's like, oh my god, your eyes are black. Like, she's realizing that he's this Super Saiyan demon now. And as she's realizing that, the Reaper comes in, breaks the window, grabs Zane to fight him, like, out in the backyard. Fight scene ensues. It's crazy. There's drama. It's super sketchy. She starts shooting the thing. Finally, the amulet bullet hits, and it works. The Reaper is critically injured. He has to go back to hell, and then Jeremiah's home. Jeremiah is there with a number of Liberi people, and they said that the sacrifice is done. Raylan Lawson has been given to God. And then Juniper just starts shooting. She's just like fucking taking out these Liberi people until they all make a run for it. And then Zane goes into a frenzy, killing all of the other cult members, while Jeremiah just stands there staring at Juniper. Jeremiah's body morphs, and there's tentacles, and he's trying to attack Juniper, but Zane interferes, and there's another fight. And Zane's pretty much like, hey, dude, if the last sacrifice worked, why are you still in a body? Like, why are you still in his body? Why are you still using a little human thingamajig? Like, you're still weak. And so they get in this fight. He ends up damaging Jeremiah's body enough that the god, like, recoils out of it, and then he just leaves Jeremiah for dead. Without the god's influence in Jeremiah's body now, he's just limp and dying. They take Jeremiah into the house, and it ends with Juniper shooting Jeremiah and killing him. Then they catch the house on fire. They're watching it burn down. And then Leon comes over the hill. he had left Ray in the tree line kind of hiding, but he was going to kill Jeremiah. And so when he gets down there and he's talking to Zane and Juniper, he's a little upset that Juniper killed Jeremiah, but she's like, he died like a coward. He would have liked it. We're safe now. So Ray and Leon go and do their thing. Their book ends. They're happily ever after, whatever. Juniper, it was dawn by the time that we made it to the coast. They decided to just leave. She just wanted freedom. And she's talking to Zane about, she's like, I didn't think that I would live. Like, I never thought of an existence where this wasn't my life. Like, I don't know what to do now. What if revenge was all I had, and now that it's over, I didn't know how the hell to go forward? You can be broken. You'll never be too broken for me. We can be monsters, you and I. We can be wretched, messy, strange things. If you're afraid, then you can be afraid. When you lose your light, I'll still come back to you in the dark. You're not alone. You'll never be alone again. You deserve to live, Juniper Kynes. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to come out of the dark when you're ready. It's all right if you don't know which way to go. I'll be beside you. I love you, Juniper Kynes, exactly as you are. Yay! So, the sacrifice can't happen. The god is stuck under the earth, but it's still alive. It's just damaged, and everyone's safe. Except for Everly and Callum, who now have to kill a god in the third book. Oh my god. It's just such an interesting... So, the end. It's over. They all live happily ever after. We have to read the third book to figure out if they actually do or what happens next. But isn't that crazy, dude? It was so interesting. I know people are really just in it for the spice, but, like, I am such a sucker for, like, Grim Reaper, demon, monster romances, like paranormal romances. I just love it so much. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. I know this is probably a really long video. I appreciate all of you as always. Like I said, I can't believe that I'm already at 1,000 subscribers. That's wild. You guys are so supportive and I'm so grateful. I don't know, let me know, what do you think of this book, and do you want to see the third one? Let me know. And of course, make sure that you vote in my polls that I post on Fridays or Saturdays so I can keep giving you good stuff. The next video coming out is Twisted Love, so I will see you next Thursday with that. Thank you again. I appreciate you. Have a good day.